Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another thrilling round of tightly tantalising racing action. It's none other than the UKSimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship Season 19 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly hosted by SimRacing International. Today we take a look back at all the racing action as if it were live from round number 7 to 10 in the championship and what a round we have in store. We have made our way back to the United States of America and we've made our way to the US state of Florida for the world centre of motorsport, self-proclaimed, but to be fair, it lives up to the standing and the test. It is none other than the Daytona International Speedway's infamous road course. A circuit built in 1959 to draw sports car racing to the circuit already known for its incredible tri-oval and with its stock car racing. It is a course that since 1966 has played annual host to the 24 Hours of Daytona, or perhaps more formally known today as the Rolex 24 at Daytona. But regardless how you refer to it, it is an endurance race that forms part of the Triple Crown. Indeed, you could argue this is one of the Triple Crown of rounds in this championship that could really decide which way the championship swings when it comes to momentum. But as I try to get ready to take on this circuit and complete the final of our standard format rounds, but we do go into the showdown portion of the season, which is our final 3 rounds and extra points on the line. Well, the points could prove crucial here, but there are a few questions that our drivers need to resolve. Firstly, do you go all in for pace or do you go for slipstream and fuel saving? And secondly, with regards to car setup, do you go for top end speed or do you shave off a little bit of speed just to be quick through the corners? Because this 3.56 mile course was an interesting array of contradictions. On the one hand, you have over 85% of the tri-oval. Naturally, you want as high a top speed as possible, but then it is contradicted by an infield packed with hairpins, plus also a bus stop chicane on the backstretch. And with a little bit more corner speed, you may just be able to make some decisive moves throughout the course of the lap and move your way forward to the very front. But who exactly is going to make the right call on both of those questions and come away victorious? Well, that's what we're here to find out as we catch up with all the racing action. But alas, where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you to this post-round broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in today. The only place you can do so on a weekly basis is on youtube.com and search for SimRacing International SRI and want to subscribe today so that way you can stay up to date with all the latest broadcasts from our ongoing and upcoming series. In the content team, if you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, your host and commentator for this season, and as we make our way into this round, without further ado, as qualifying gets underway in the background, let's bring out to speed with the story after 6 incredible rounds of racing and what exactly we can expect here today in round number 7 of the championship. But as we can see, as we take a look back at our calendar, today it's round number 7, but last time out, we were in France, completing a brief trip to the European continent that began with the Hockenheim Ring in round number 5, but in round number 6, we made our way to the infamous French circuit, the circuit de 25 de Mans, or Le Mans as it's known in short. And on the 9th of August, we were no strangers to excitement when it came to the second of our 3 90-minute endurance races. But what exactly went down at Le Mans, and why was it such an intriguing round? Well, firstly, 47 drivers made the way to outlast the rigours of Le Mans, and in qualifying, it'll be Harvey Wheeler who left an absolute microphone drop qualifying pole lap, taking overall and pro pole by almost 6.5 tenths of a second ahead of Tim Probert. The Sun would lock out the front row, and Philip Hammerby stuck in 3rd, albeit joined by Mikey Stewart, who continues to impress in qualifying form. Adam Lynch took the interclass pole position by 905th place overall, ahead of Max Wheeler, the championship leader, coming into the round, and the pair were separated by Timo Gertner, who was able to squeeze his way between the two of them. Meanwhile, there's a huge surprise in the club class, whereby Ryan Abbots took his maiden pole position of the season with 24th overall and was 3.5 tenths quicker than his second place club class peer of none Stephen Parker Hamilton, who started 28th by comparison, and well, he had the pressure of Tom Wheeler lined up right behind him, only 1600ths adrift. But when we did go racing, there was drama right at the start. The open lap saw several drivers fall foul of incidents, including both our front row starters overall of Harvey Wheeler and Tim Probert, and also the interpole sitter of Adam Lynch. They were all forced down the order, meaning that Mikey Stewart and Philip Hammer were able to take the lead of the race overall and started to break away from the rest of the field, despite Adam Watson attempting to hang on to the back of them for the opening couple of laps. Max Wheeler picked up the interlead, whilst Club had more of a tame start by comparison, with Ryan Abbots leading ahead of Tom Wheeler, who had the better start compared to Stephen Parker Hamilton. But as the race gradually went on, it evolved into one focused on fuel saving and strategy. The two-stop was the only viable strategy seen at Le Mans, when most opted not to change tyres whatsoever, and drivers would form groups in order to fuel save off of each other. However, there was one group in particular that made sure they presented us with plenty of entertainment, and there was no peace amongst them, and it was none other than Jeffrey Damon, Daniel Kovac, Miller Boyd, Troy Anderson and Eric Gebhard, who made sure to battle for the final spots in the Oval and Pro Top 10 absolutely non-stop throughout the entirety of the race. If you couldn't make it up, it was brilliant entertainment. However, there's also another driver providing plenty of entertainment, Harvey Wheeler, looking to recover from his open lap incident and show shows you can battle for the win at Le Mans on pace. It's not just about fuel saving and sitting in the slipstream, as he roared his way all the way from 17th overall to the lead battle with Philip Hammer, and in the end of the final stint, it was back and forth between the two of them, and the win would have been Harvey Wheeler's if not for a cataclysmic mistake going through the Porsche curves on the final lap, which saw him hand the win to Philip Hammer when there was no pressure to do so. Meanwhile, in the interclass, Ashley Brooks' late spurt of pace to chase down Max Wheeler came to an abrupt end when he did have a spin on lap 21 at the Mulsanne hairpin, ending his chances of closing down the gap. And in the club class, whilst Ryan Abbots was running away for the win and he could never be caught, well, meanwhile, Tom Wheeler and Jordan Maymar made sure there was plenty of excitement for the bottom steps of the podium, whereby the final 3 laps saw them swap back and forth. However, Jordan Maymar would lose out in the fight for second and have to settle for third, while making a very similar mistake to that of Harvey Wheeler, both of them at turn number 25 of the Porsche curves and both on the final lap. So to recap your winners from last time out, overall on Pro, it was Philip Hammer who took his 5th win of the season by 11.2 seconds, albeit the gap realistically shouldn't have been that, given it was all down to the late mistake from Harvey Wheeler that completely upended the narrative of the story. And in the interclass, it was Max Wheeler who went on from second in his qualifying performance in class, only that 900th of Adam Lynch's pole time, but after taking the lead and working with the likes of Hayden Young and Adam Watson to pull away, it was enough to keep him safe, plus the mistake of Ashley Brooks, and he was able to take his 2nd win of the season by almost 12 seconds. And in the club class, where it was a maiden season win for Ryan Abbott, a standout performance in his Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo for Team Lubish, and in the end, he had such a comfortable advantage working with the pros and interdrives in front of him, that he was able to take his maiden win from a maiden pole position by 35.5 seconds. But who will be our winners today here at Daytona? Well, that's what we're here to find out, with sunny skies expected, but of course it is our nighttime round today, and what better way to go racing than under the Floridian floodlights of Daytona. Before we head into our showdown rounds, which start with round number 8 in a week's time at the Watkins Glen International Circuit in the US state of New York. But without further ado, as we take a look to our standings after a grand total of 6 rounds. Remembering, of course, our drivers will drop 1 score in amongst the first 7 rounds, but the final 3 rounds, the showdown rounds, are undroppable. So therefore, for Philip Hammer, as we look to the Pro Top 12, well, in theory, should he take victory today and make it 6 in a row, he would have a perfect record going into the showdown format, because his drop score would be the 2nd place in the season opener. Will he be able to do that for Pole Promotion Esports, given the fact he had a bit of a lucky lifeline with Harvey Wheeler's mistake at the end of Le Mans? But then again, could it be the sign that Philip Hammer has pace, and he has consistency and strategy all packaged together perfectly, and the Pole Promotion with ASR driver definitely looking to be the package to beat? His teammate Michael Schutzer cared about by contrast, taking that 9th place in the end, not the round he wanted, struggling in qualified and struggling to overturn it in the race, and now 2nd on 360 points, only ahead of Mikey Stewart based on result countback, whereby the two of them equal points, but it's 2 second places for Schutzer cared about versus the 3 third places for Mikey Stewart. Now, credit where it's due to Mr. Third Place, or the Axis Sport with Sim Coach Drive of Mikey Stewart, in the fact that he's definitely been highly consistent since the midpoint of the season, and can he maintain that consistency today? Can he make it another podium, but perhaps move on to the 2nd step, if not go for the win? He'd like that, because otherwise that nickname of Mr. Third Place is definitely going to stand for the Ferrari driver. 10 points behind him. Well, after the dismay of the Hockenheimring, Harvey Wheeler bounced back for a Verso Rapid and almost took the win at Le Mans, and he'll be itching for his chance of a 2nd win today, given the fact that right now he is losing momentum in his title defence versus Philip Hammer. But behind him by 38 points is Timo Gertner, the Wild Ride Motorsports driver, and always keep your eyes out for him, since he's had 3 top 5s in a row, and he's definitely building up pace and form as this season goes. Tim Probert sits behind him by 6 points there, the Syndicate Racing driver, definitely having a lot of fun at Le Mans, albeit perhaps not rewarded for the fun he had, particularly with the early instant scuppered his chance to a podium. And Adam Watson sits in 7th place there for Altitude 3M with Simcast Racing, and will that 4th place not respecting the fact that in the end he puffed and puffed, he pushed as hard as he possibly could, but the podium was just too far out of his reach. Miller Boyd sits behind there in 8th place, just ahead of Daniel Kovac, and then behind the DRX Esport driver completing a top 10, it's Jason Baxter, who wasn't on the grid last time out. We hope to see him today on home soil. In fact, not home soil, there he's British driver, and get the team that mixed up with the American ownership. Nathan Anstis in 11th meanwhile for team UKSimRacing, and there's the American man for Wild Ride Motorsports, that's another Troy Anderson there in 12th, and right now looking to bounce back from that 14th place last time out. Then we come to the interclass, and as we can see in the 2nd tier of our classes, it's Max Wheeler who leads the way for Verso Fast. His Audi R8 LMS Evo 2. 2 wins, 3 podiums in total. And indeed, so far, all of his counted results better than 4th place. So therefore, the thought process is going to be for the Audi driver. Can he at least maintain his top 5 seasons, if not make it a 3rd win today or a 4th podium? And in doing so, well, he will be able to extend that lead, which currently stands at 124 points, ahead of Wesley Van Rens for Lewis Homewood Racing with Revolution 3 Racing. And the Dutchman right now, yet to secure a podium. He's come close several times, albeit the podium was far away last time out, but he's been highly consistent this season, and that's why he's 4 points ahead of Ashley Brooks, the Axis SimSports SimWorks driver, who was on course to potentially chase down that second win of the season for himself at Le Mans, but a small mistake at the Mulsanne hairpin scuppered all of that. Indeed, right now, 9, he's still got a lot of work to do if he wants to chase down the leader, but first and foremost, he needs the result today to move him into second. Ryan Powner, for worst racing team ever, sits in fourth, and right now all eyes will be on the Swede to see what he can do after a bit of an anonymous day of racing at Le Mans, whereby he's now only the best part there of 36 points ahead of Tom Cordy for Phoenix Racing, who definitely had a difficult day at Le Mans. With that 14th place finish, his worst score of the season so far in recent history, of course, marrying to the fact of that 15th place in the season opener, which is his drop score. Thiago Reza for Lewis Homewood Racing there on 252 points, and right now the Brazilian driver known as a bit more work to be done for him as he tries to push forward. And there's Pete Cox there sitting in 7th place for Verso Fast, and right now the 216 points for the Verso Fast Mercedes driver. Well, he'll be hoping that perhaps he can return to podium ways right at the end of the standard rounds before we do go into those crucial 50% bonus points rounds. If not, Dean Collins, well, he's only the best part of 10 points behind. Could the worst racing team ever try to turn around what has been a real slump of form since the heroics that were performed earlier in the season? Indeed, you could tie it to his dismay after the strategic gamble at Road America round number 4. Adam Lynch sits a further 2 points behind there. He's missed a few rounds this season, but the Euro Titans endurance driver in his McLaren, when he's on the grid, he's looking formidable, albeit unfortunately didn't quite work out at Le Mans. And Luke Sherlock there, the privateer on 200 points. Well, he's also in the hunt there, particularly trying to steal away that trophy spot of 7th place of Pete Cox. Indeed, the fight is on right now for the final trophy grabbing position in the interclass. Jack Weibold a further 20 points behind, a further 2 to Darren Sharples. Do not rule them out either. And as we come to the club class, here we can see it is Tom Wheeler who leads the way. 4 podiums in a row for the Averso Rapid Ford Mustang driver, and he hasn't quite had a win since round number 4, but to be fair to him, his consistency right now has to be adored, although Jordan Maymar matching him with consistency to a good degree. 3 podiums in 4 rounds. His most recent form being a win and a 3rd place. Well, the Altitude Esports with SimCast Racing driver definitely very eager to return to the top step of the podium today to close out that gap as much as possible to Tom Wheeler, who right now is just simply taking the approach, I need to beat Jordan Maymar on the road and everything else is secondary. But do not rule out James Conley, who slips back to 3rd. It was not a day to be celebrated for the Team UKSimRacing Damon Hill driver last time out, with that 7th place finish undermining what has been a good run of season 4 so far. And Ryan Abbott's taken his maiden win of the season. Well, a huge amount of points coming his way for Team Newish, that 100-point score. But to be fair, was it unexpected given his 2nd place in his first round that he attended in round number 2? Perhaps not, but it has made on 328 points. He's now announced himself in the top 3 fight. Jordan Butler, a further 14 points behind. He'll be looking to continue his run of top 5s, albeit he did take a 7th before his 5th place at Le Mans, so therefore it hasn't been perfect, but he's definitely looking for perfection today for Spectre Racing. And then Daniel Pace sits in 6th for Old Dudes in Cars and 290 points, falls to the head of Gianluca Rospo, the Italian, still waiting for that first podium of the season, but a 4th place last time out. He's getting closer to it. And then behind the Deep Motorsport McLaren, it's Matthew Hunter on 270 points for Simcast Racing, who in turn is ahead of Jim Fox, the Roadkill Privateer, on 212. And it's 198 points there for Hexagon Slows, Swede, Tobias Hakanson, with Christopher Bates and Ryan Clark completing your club top 12. As the team championship standings, here we can see leading the way it's Pole Promotion with ASR on 850 points, and they are the best comfort gap now, 124 ahead of Verso Rapid with Simcast for Altitude 3M on 656 points. The key theme is that our top 2 are definitely pulling away, and we definitely have our confirmed top 2 in this team's championship as we head towards the showdown rounds. And meanwhile, the fight for 3rd is gradually breaking apart. And the Verso Fast in 4th place, we're very eager to try and make sure that Simcast Altitude 3 and bring them with them into the top fight. However, Revolution 3 Race will be very keen to try and pull Verso Fast back to them as they do try to close the gap now with 552 points to 568 of their rivals. But for the 552 of Revolution 3 Racing, it's then going to be 488 for Spectre Racing SimWorks UK, and they're only 6 ahead of Team UKSimRacing Hill, who slipped back into 7th after a difficult day at Le Mans. Axis SimSport with SimCoach, they continue to try and punch as high as they possibly can on 464 points. They are the best part of 32 ahead of Wild Ride Motorsport, and right now Wild Ride Motorsports have broken into the top 10 for the first time this season. Can they remain within it? Well, they have a bit of a comfort gap there to Phoenix Racing, so they should be able to do so, with Phoenix Racing dropping from 9th to 10th for their lowest scoring round of the season, and they've almost slipped out of the top 10, with Send It Racing Bulls on the charge, 32 points behind the top 10, but they do have worst racing team ever, number 42, and Hexagon Slow, keeping them for very close company. But let's take a look at our circuit very quickly before we do head back to circuit side. side, and it is Daytona International Speedway's road course, located near Daytona Beach in the Volusia County of the US state of Florida. 3.56 miles in length or 5.72 kilometers, depending on your preference of units, but what doesn't change is the number of corners, 12 of them in total, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track that's contained within it. 12 corners, 2 of which are the oval banks, and the rest is hairpins and a chicane. And as our drivers make the way on around here, they'll definitely find they've got to find the balance between straight line speed and cornering capability. But rather than try to talk you through a lap here on the two-dimensional image, perhaps it's better for us to bring you some on-board laps in qualifying under the floodlights. So therefore, what we're going to do, as we do say, a big thank you, of course, to iRacing.com, not just their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track that's contained within it. Well, let's head back to circuit side and see exactly what's going down in qualifying and get you some on-board laps, ladies and gentlemen. And how is it going in qualifying? Well, first and foremost is the man on provisional oval and pro pole. It's none other than Philip Hammer at this time on a 1 minute 43.899. Looking quick out there. Indeed, delivery absolutely shining under night lights. And for those of you who love your motorsport trivia, well, the one little thing you do need to know about the floodlights here that we're racing under at Daytona is that they've had their brightness adjusted to only 25% of their typical output. And that is to simulate nighttime conditions. Indeed, if you do watch a NASCAR race here at Daytona in the night, as Philip Hammer there completely drifts off the road and into the night. He gets it back together there as he returns from the flat back up to the oval banking very gradually, going parallel there to the yellow line, building up speed and making sure he's got plenty of speed and clear track before he does rejoin. Even the very best can make mistakes, but he knows how to recover from it very quickly, even if the undertrav of his Porsche 992 definitely will be shaken and stirred. But as he makes his way onwards, the point we were saying, and so you do see an oval race here at night time at Daytona, you'll find it is a lot brighter. And the reason that brightness is because they have the floodlights towards maximum output, and therefore it completely takes away the conception of nighttime racing. To give you an analogy, if you've ever watched Formula 1 and seen them race at Singapore, or indeed some of the other street circuits on the Asian continent which have been hosted towards nighttime, or the street-esque circuits, such as of course the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix that typically ends the season, if my memory serves me correctly, up in not the Yas Marina circuit, although I may be mistaken, I think it is actually the Yas Marina circuit. You'll find that it looks though actually it's just as bright as daytime. But to simulate nighttime conditions, the floodlights are turned down to 25% of their normal output, and that's where the headlights can be on for the cars, because remember, NASCARs, they have no headlights, they are stickers on the front of the car to make them look like road cars when they're seriously not. But I digress. Let's come back to what we want to talk a little bit more about here and what's going down in qualifying. Well, Harvey Wheeler currently the third fastest at the moment, and between the two of them, it's none other than Hayden Young, and it's 2 attempts between the top 3 from car to car to car, albeit Hayden Young, you'll notice, is back in his Porsche 992. Now, he was disqualified from the results at Le Mans because he had switched. Well, he's already switched one car this season, and I do believe he went to the Porsche as his choice number 2 car, and he decided to go to the McLaren last time out at Le Mans, so he'd used an extra car change, which is not allowed as per the rule book, so therefore he's disqualified from the results, and he has gone back to the Porsche. Now, we have had a few drivers say, well, does that not count as another car change theoretically? Because essentially what Hayden has done is he's gone from car A to B to C back to B, so that is technically a third car change. Yes, but no, because he turned up in the wrong car at Le Mans. That's why we have disqualified him for those results and told Hayden, you need to be in the Porsche going forward, otherwise you will be disqualified from every race you attend in a different car. We're not going to penalise him twice for going back to the car he should be in. I think that would be a little bit gross and unfair, perhaps. At least that's my personal opinion. You may disagree, but we're all here to, of course, agree to disagree, as one thing we can agree on is that Ashley Brooks right now looking very rapid out there as he makes his way around through turn number 1, as he does so with the McLaren 720S Evo driver, the provisional pole sitter at this time in the Interclass, and will 5 tenths off the overall pole time. But to be fair to him, well, he is only half a tenth ahead of Tom Cordy. Well, he'll definitely want to get a little bit more work done here right now if he wants to make sure this man, the Phoenix Racing Ford Mustang GT3 driver, doesn't find a way to close the gap. Lovely livery on that car, it must be said, really does look like the Crimson Demon as he makes his way around there. And on home soil for the American V8 5-litre Coyote engine, well, Tom Cordy's definitely going to be very eager here to try and put a brilliant performance to the circuit, but this Mustang should go loud and proud. Third fastest right now of your Interclass is Jack Wybon, the McLaren driver. And these McLarens definitely have looked very strong at power circuits this season. At Le Mans we saw them, they were very strong, and here today they're looking quite competitive as well. That's of course the balance performance, it giveth and it taketh. But right now, one driver giving it everything in the E-Club class, I should say. I almost said the Interclass there, but in the Club class, indeed, the old habits die hard when it comes to class names, all the way from many seasons ago. Well, your Club class provisional pole sitter at the moment is Tom Wheeler in his Ford Mustang for a Verso. As he makes way through the quarters right now for Reverso Rapid in particular, well, he's 20th overall. But remember, the man who leads the championship, well, he'll be wanting this win to give himself as much of a comfort gap as possible before heading into the showdown format. Jordan Maymar, his main rival, is currently 4th, but between them, you've got Jim Fox firstly, and Fox not in the car at the moment, so we won't be able to get a pan to him, but we will see Stephen Parker Hamilton. And it's been a bit of an interesting season for this man since he arrived on the scene as part of the MLC Endurance team alongside Jack Wyborn. He's had 2 pole positions in the club class so far out of 3 rounds. He's not been able to successfully convert any of them into a win as far as my memory goes, and therefore for Parker Hamilton the big question is, when is he going to potentially take another pole position and complete that conversion? Or perhaps he shouldn't be taking pole positions, perhaps he just seems to have this spell on himself, which can happen. It's sometimes the way it goes for a driver, whereby they take pole, they're very unlikely to take the win. Statistics may show that, even though there's no logical sense in it. Perhaps it is a mental thing whereby taking pole position just seems to change the way the driver approaches the race. Not saying there's a problem with Stephen Parker Hamilton mentally, being very clear about this, but there are some drivers out there in history whereby whenever they qualify pole, they never seem to have a chance to win. There's other statistics out there, drivers who just cannot win at their home races. Look at Rubens Barrichello, for example. If you look at his illustrious Formula 1 career, whereby no matter how many times he tried and no matter how many times he qualified right towards the front of the grid at the Interlagos circuit, he could never win his home race, including, of course, perhaps the most infamous 2009 Grand Prix there, which saw Jenson Button wrap up the title for Braun GP, and Rubens Barrichello starting right at the front of the field and seeing it all go wrong very rapidly indeed. But Parker Hamilton right now definitely statistically a bit of an anomaly with regards to his pole to win conversion as he makes his way on around. But I said to you, we're going to get you some onboard laps in qualifying. We're not going to miss out on that, as we do look to Luke Sherlock for a brief moment as he makes his way on around in his own McLaren. Most sporting, a new logo, I do believe, today for the 5-9 racing team as he makes his way around on the car. And I do believe we've got that loaded for the broadcast as well, rather than just a picture of his car. Lovely livery, it must be said, for Luke Sherlock. And good to see him make his way onwards. And thank you to him for submitting his logo for the purpose of the broadcast. We do appreciate it. But as we do look for a driver to ride on board with, well, who better perhaps do so than with the man who's currently your individual pole sitter? It's Ashley Brooks as he takes us around for a flying lap. Going down into turn 1 then and braking as he turns in towards the opening corner, trail braking all the way down to 3rd gear, staying in a higher gear there to settle down the rear of the car and also mitigate wheel spin. And now powering his way for the turns 2, 3 chicane as he brings it over to left-hander for the horseshoe hairpin. Braking about 150 metres a quarter apex, down to 2nd gear, stamps to the throttle and blasts out the corner. As he does so, now up towards turn 5 and 6. The kink they'll catch out many with cold tyres at the start of the race, the high fuel tank, but here he can go flat out through the corner for the most part, so long as he's gentle with the steering input. Then onto the brakes, 150 metres from the 2nd of the hairpins as he makes his way through turn number 6. You can see here, tight exit, get on the pot throttle and let the car pull itself out the corner as he now gently brings it over to the right to open up the 3rd hairpin, turn number 7, to go back onto the tri-oval banking. Then plenty of apex curb, keeping it nice and tight. A little bit of oversteer there with the car's unsettled by the bump in the road. And with it, the road surface transition. Now onto the banking he goes here. And Brooks just throttle all the way down. Got to keep the car nice and low here. The lower you keep it towards the yellow line, you're not allowed to go below the yellow line in qualifying, nor in the race. No overtakes are permitted below the yellow line. But you need to keep it nice and tight there to shorten the run onto the back stretch. Now he'll look to his right hand side, looks for the number 1 board and braking just before it to turn into the bus stop chicane. Makes his way from left into right, right into left here. And as soon as he clears that right hander, return to full throttle as quickly as you can and make his way onwards. We do see a car going to rejoin, but taking late evasive action. Good awareness from them. And now as he makes his way all the way through, well, for Ashley Brooks, at this point it's just head down and have the faith that you've done this lap good enough to be able to carry all the speed to the timing line. But look in the bottom right hand corner of your screen and you'll see there, whilst he's going so fast, it's causing the speedometer to struggle to keep up. He is pushing the best part of 176 miles an hour as he crosses that timeline. And for Brooks, it goes 3rd that lap, 44.193. An impressive lap there from Brooks. That puts him 3/10 off the overall pole time. And right now, Ashley doing a phenomenal job of trying to put this qualifying session in the interclass to bed as best as possible. And I get the feeling right now he's driving a little bit angry. This isn't a bad thing, by the way. He knows the chance he had to take victory at Le Mans was squandered with that mistake. And here today, he's going to right that wrong. That's the target, and I do love a story like that for our 219 driver as he makes way around. He's one of the hardest workers out there, no doubt about it, as he comes down in towards the 2nd hairpin. But as he does so, we look to sight and see. Has been a bit quiet over the last couple of rounds. Currently the full fastest in the interclass. The UK SimRacing Jackie Stewart driver making his way on through with Tartan Blade on the car. That lovely livery, of course, and definitely going down in history as well. The finest liveries that I think we'll ever see on the UK SimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship grid. And it definitely takes a different turn under night lights as he comes down in towards turn number 1. But as he does so, very nice position of the car. And what's very interesting, of course, is we have 2 Porsches on the front row, 2 McLarens on the second row, then a Porsche and a Ferrari, then a McLaren and a Mustang. So we have got quite a bit of car variety here. But of course, the less popular cars can just be as powerful as the more popular ones, albeit it'll be a bit of an interesting challenge for Max Wheeler today in that Audi R8. We see him on screen. And, well, a bit of a different livery on the car here, unless I'm mistaken, but I get the feeling they've changed that livery. And now, for some reason, I'm getting flashbacks here. Does anybody remember the HKS liveries that used to be on the likes of Nissan R32 Skylines? And also, I do believe some other drag racing cars powered by HKS back in the 90s. Of course, those cars then ended up on Gran Turismo 2, I want to say, if anybody thinks all the way back there. I think the other drag racing car was a Nissan 240X that have been obviously drag spec'd, and well, as he makes way around that, I'm getting those colours from the HKS livery era machines, which used to be a very popular set of colours to doll a car up in. That's probably not the appropriate term there. I'm using the term from London slang at this point. I was born in London, for those curious, so therefore I do know my Cockney slang and all about my apples and pears, my daisy roots, my boots, and also PC plod. But right now, as Max Wheeler plods on here, coming back to what we want to talk about, the problem is the fact that this Audi, we do know, not the strongest on the straight and circuits typically where it's about power. Although, Max would argue, well, I showed that you can win at a power circuit because I did it at Le Mans, and therefore commentators don't know what they're on about, and I would agree with 100%. But I think one of the things as well that Max was able to do very successfully at Le Mans was he was able to use the pro drives in front of him to pull himself away, plus also, of course, he'd sacrificed any handling of the car. He'd gone all in for that speed, and that's something you have to do. For the cars which are not as naturally quick on the straight, you normally do have to tune out all the rear wing in order to get the maximum speed, plus also manipulate the gear stack, of which most of these cars will have the option of a short, an FIA, and a Daytona stroke Le Mans gear stack, which many drivers may be opting to use today. The Daytona stroke long, what it does, it lengthens every gear to the maximum, so you go for top end speed. The only problem is you lose acceleration out of the hairpins because naturally every gear is a bit longer, so therefore the rate at which you get to the maximum RPM will take longer. Maybe interesting to see because he's currently 6th fastest. The difference between Daytona and Le Mans is that whilst we technically have just as long acceleration zones with the oval banking sequences, we do have corners in much quicker succession, and also the fact that it's a much shorter circuit, given the fact we've got 3.56 miles in length rather than 8.46 miles, so we are under half of the length for Le Mans, but it is a circuit where corners do come a little bit quicker rather than be a circuit dominated by straights the best part of 60% of the lap, and then you do have condensed corner sequences. But as Wheeler makes his way on around, let's see if he can improve as he heads towards his final qualifying lap. We are going to get another onboard lap very shortly as Wheeler crosses the timing line. He was 18th. I do believe this is an improvement. It puts him 12th at 44.558. So Wheeler moving that Audi up into 4th in class, and that's it for him. He's going no further in this session. But as Stephen Parker Hamilton makes his way on around, we're going to get on board a slightly different car in order to give you a bit more variety. And in fact, how about this? Because, of course, he's back to the car that he's definitely meant to be in. Well, Hayden Young makes his way across that yellow line. In fact, he's coming into the pit lane there, so we won't get on board with him. Hayden, I think, knew that we're going to come to an on board and decided to get a bit camera shy. That's the narrative we're going to set up, but of course, it's not true. But instead, let's give some coverage to a team that have been definitely stars this season. It's Daniel Kovac with the iRacing Sport as he heads in towards turn number 1. So braking his way into the opening corner. Such a long braking zone here. You're braking about 200 metres away from the apex of the corner, but no issues there at all. Kovac doing that as if he's doing it in his sleep. Now made his way over towards the left-hand side for turn number 4, and onto the brakes here, coming all the way down to second gear. Doesn't dare touch first gear, but you see the difference there when we rode on board with Brooks. Oh, and Kovac battling with oversteer there as he comes out the corner. And is he going to carry on? He is, as he makes his way into the kicker turn number 5 and going through that fast left-hand. A lovely line in the Ferrari 296, and onto the brakes, coming all the way down to second gear, but doesn't dare touch first gear, but takes a lot of apex curve there. I think he's a little bit disrupted by making a mistake at turn 4 because he took a bit more apex curve than he would normally like to, but still then opens up turn 7 as much as possible. I'm not seeing anybody go that wide into turn 7 before, and as he makes his way out, well, Kovac using all the tarmac. He's paid to be here today, so therefore he's going to use every millimetre of tarmac. I can't blame the Hungarian driver for it. But now powering his way onto the bank here, going through turn number 8 and making his way all the way round. And as he does so, the circuit gradually clearing up. I don't think he's going to catch up to the club class driver in front of Ryan Clark to get a distant toe. He may do if he gets a really good run for the bus stop chicane, but onto the brakes he goes, and braking after the one board. This is as late as you possibly can brake into this chicane, and we're coming on through there right into left, and now on the throttle. But again, the more speed you carry into the bus stop chicane, also known as Le Mans today, but it'll be a long time before I start referring into it as Le Mans. Once it makes well through, the more speed you carry in, typically the harder it is to carry speed out of the chicane. And here goes Kovac all the way to the timing line, and as he does so, well, what's it going to be? The answer is it's a no-go. He makes his way into the pits, and I think he's made too many mistakes in the first half of the lap in order to be able to really feel confident to complete the lap. So he decides enough's enough, as Ryan Clark parks up, does not improve. We've got a couple of drivers still out there. Darren Sharples has parked up. The only driver really on a lap now is Adam Watson, currently the 5th fastest for Altitude 3M with SimCast Racing. He heads towards the timing line. He's going to commit to lap. He's had the best Hurstall best middle sector, but he's not going to commit to lap. So instead, he uses an opportunity to practice coming into the pit lane instead. And an important part of the race, of course, making sure you don't breach the limit of line. But with that, that is qualified complete. And it is Philip Hammer who takes pole position, returning to the front of the grid at 43.852. 2.5 tenths behind Hayden Young with a season best qualified performance there. And Michael Schutzer about going under the radar there. Philip Hammer's teammate for pole promotion with ASR taking third on the grid right at the end of the session. Very impressive that there from Schutzer. Ashley Brooks taking the interpole position there, 4th place. Well done to him. Takes his 2nd pole position of the season, my memory serves me correctly, and will doing so in the end by the best part of what was 1.5 tenths ahead of Jack Wyborn, who starts 7th, with Adam Watson and Harvey Wheeler between the two of them. Tom Cordy, meanwhile, was separated from Jack Wyborn by Tim Probert, who managed to squeeze his way onto the 4th row of the grid. And meanwhile, Tom Cordy then bringing on home none other than what would be 3rd in that class and 9th overall. And then you have to look all the way down to 20th place overall for Tom Wheeler, who's your club pole sitter. The Ford Mustang driver taking that pole position by 1.5 tenths ahead of Jim Fox. A very commendable lap there from the privateer for Roadkill Racing. He's taking 2nd place in the club class. A season best qualifying performance for Fox as well. Well done to him. Just squeezed his way ahead onto that 11th row ahead of Stephen Parker Hamilton. But the gap between the two of them, 5,000. So it'll be interesting to see how close they're going to be when they do go racing. But as the qualifying session is adjourned, well, now we make our way into the 5-minute warm-up session, or also known as the comfort break second, or the hold up a second, I've got to go to the bathroom, as some of you may refer to it as well. I do love how these warm-up sessions have grown and gained a bit of a nickname over the last few months, and that's always great to see. I think the I've got to go to the bathroom nickname has come from our spectators for the GTE Championship, and I think meanwhile the more comfort break, or the more formal perhaps, or the more adult-friendly reference to it has come for the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship. But either way you skin it, indeed this is the opportunity for drivers to get out to the rig, stretch their legs a little bit, make sure they've got their liquid refreshment available if they do have a bottle of water beside them. Speaking of which, we've got our pint glass sack next to us, filled with water, I should point out here. Alternatively, it would be a 0% alcoholic beverage if we were going to drink on the job. Not that we do that, of course. All these broadcasts done as formally and professionally as humanly possible. Not trying to pat myself on the back there, being transparent with you all. And as we see Miller Boyd making his way on the ramp, this is also an opportunity for those who have been spending a lot of time with the qualifying setup on their car to put the race setup back in the car and perhaps do a lap, perhaps also practice pit entry. Now, pit entry is going to be so important here at Daytona. Now, you could say that any circuit, to be fair, but why specifically Daytona? Well, this is one of the circuits whereby when you come into the pit, you are coming into the pit at maximum speed, whereby you are on the oval banking for turn number 12 and you drop off of the oval and simply go to the left and you go onto the flat straight into the pits. But the idea is you want to brake as late as possible to come into that pit lane, and therefore every millimetre you can brake closer to the pit lane entry, you will be able to gain effective time. The Daytona pit lane, quite a long one as well, although it does have rather higher pit speed. I do believe the pit speed of none other than 80 kilometres an hour, which for those of you who work in miles per hour, you'd be looking at around 50 miles per hour, if my memory serves me correctly, of that conversion. And so actually, while the fastest pit lane's out there, you really do need to make the most of the time coming in and also the exit. And that's where you see several drivers practice the pit lane entry, including I think some of the drivers making the round around right now. But what can we expect? How difficult is it going to be overtaken here, and how important has qualifying been to our drivers? Well, the thing is, we do expect this to turn into a very slipstream orientated race. A number of drivers have been saying in the build up to it, which is if Le Mans not the most boring race on the calendar, then expect Le Mans to be from a driver's perspective. We'll expect Daytona to be from a driver's perspective. As I said, Le Mans in the same sentence twice. Indeed, I've got Le Mans in the brain for some reason. and Harvey Wheeler makes his way on around. And the reason why drivers typically refer to race at Daytona as being a little bit boring, although they definitely won't be from our perspective as viewers, is because a lot of the time you do spend it trying to work with a pack of cars. It's a to me, to you, you're trying to fuel save, but then again, will there be some drivers out there who don't adhere to that full process? Of course, we did see a whole group of 5 drivers last about at Le Mans absolutely deliver that incredible set of back and forth battles all the way through. Jeffrey Day with Daniel Kovac, Miller Boyd, Troy Anderson and Eric Gebhardt, who then all decide that they wanted to be the head of their group of 5, and nobody really wanted to politely say, you know what, I'll let you go. They were constantly throwing things back and forth. Well, we'll have to wait and see whether that happens here today between some drivers, because of course, the thing about drivers and personalities is we do see worst racing team ever all out there, the number 42 team and the number 44 cars out there as well. And I think they're going for a bit of a photo opportunity under the floodlights. Again, a good opportunity to do so right now. The one thing, of course, is with these drivers, everyone has a bit of a personality out there. Some drivers are very passive and very peaceful. Other drivers, meanwhile, they do get a little bit rumbled when you do make an overtake on them, even if it is just for the purposes of saving some fuel or slipstreaming on past. And it's how all those personalities mould together. It's like a bit of a dysfunctional family, if you will, out of that grid. But we form a massive grid. We do have 46 drivers here today. Indeed, all those personalities will come together. And you could say it is a bit of a sitcom, albeit a very high-speed sitcom at that. I don't think anything like that's been achieved. I wonder if that is a formula for a series on Netflix. I know Drive to Survive tried to turn all the Formula 1 drivers into what is the equivalent of an episode of EastEnders. I don't really watch Drive to Survive anymore, I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, but as Matthew Hunter makes way around, he's definitely going to drive to thrive today for SimRacing team at the 310. Lovely living in that car, as always. And from what I was hearing in the paddock, in the build-up to this round, a lot of confidence down in the SimRacing team paddock. I think they're feeling as though they've got a very good opportunity here today to score some big points before going into the showdown round, so we'll have to wait and see whether that becomes the reality. But everyone absolutely set, and coming back to the question of how important that qualifying is, because we have become a bit distracted, it's not too important as long as you find the right drivers to work with, but you can go full attack here. Harvey Wheeler did it at Le Mans. He may try to do it again here today, which is just simply say, I'm not going to fuel save, I'm going to get to the front, and if I can't make the break, only then will I try and fuel save. It all comes down to who you work with. But if we do see the field start to split into packs, then suddenly drivers may feel as though they're relegated to fighting for a position around where they are, rather than those positions that end up being 5, 6, 7 seconds up the road from. So we're interested to see as the warm-up session comes to a close, and without further ado, it's time to make our way to the grid, because it's time, ladies and gentlemen, to make our way under the floodlights of Florida to see who exactly is going to be daring and going to be victorious here at Daytona. And so as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our 7th instalment of the season, and with it, of course, the final standard points round in Season 19 of the UKSimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship, brought to you on iRacing and hosted by SimRacing International. Philip Hammer takes pole position for pole promotion with ASR, the Pro Championship leader, joined on the front row of the grid by Hayden Young for Send It Racing, taking his season best qualifying points 2.5 tenths behind. It was a further 400s to Michael Schitzer-Kerouac for pole promotion with ASR, once again showing his ability to deliver some very intriguing qualifying laps, and join him on that second row of the grid, Ashley Brooks at Axis Sports Simworks, pole sitter of the Interclass. Adam Watson starts 5th for Simcast for Altitude 3M, ahead of Harvey Wheeler for Reverso Rapid, and it'll be Jack Wyburn for MRC Endurance Team at second of the Interclass, joined on the 4th row by Tim Probert for Send It Racing. Tom Cordy starts 3rd for the Interclass for Phoenix Racing, 9th on the overall grid, ahead of Miller Boyd for Send It Racing Balls on home soil. Starting 11th, it's going to be Timo Gertner with another decent qualifying points for Wild Ride Motorsport, joined on that 6th row by Max Wheeler for Reverso Fast, the championship leader in the Interclass. Daniel Kovac starts 13th for DRX Esport in the company of Cy Anti, 4th of the Interdrivers for the team UKSimRacing Stewart, 5th in fact I should say of the class there, and the Welshman followed up by Darren Sharples for Old Dudes in Cars Midlife Crisis, and his sister driver for Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia, Casper Brotner. Steve Hobbs starts his 17th worst racing team ever, ahead of Axis Sports Sim coaches Mikey Stewart, and Robin Pan for worst racing team ever, and Tom Wheeler for Verso Rapid, the club pole sitter. Complete your top 20. 21st, it's Matthew Bacon ahead of Jim Fox, taking a season best qualifying points, second in the club class, the Roadkill Racing Privateer outfit. Then Stephen Park Hamilton, 3rd for MRC Endurance Team in club, 23rd overall. Hendrik Zilka joins him on the 12th row, ahead of Jordan Maymar and Jeffrey Damon on row number 13. And on row 14, it's going to be Christopher Bates and Martin Kenyon. On row 15, to complete the top 30, it's going to be Luke Sherlock and Dean Collins. And mine, the worst racing team ever driver, it's going to be 31st for Ryan Abbots ahead of Graham Vivers. Jack Barker starts 33rd for Made Racing ahead of Daniel Pays. And you do have Tobias Hutchinson ahead of Jordan Butler. With Matthew Hunter 37th on the grid ahead of James Conley. And then we have Peter Cox ahead of Nathan Anstis, the two old teammates, now rivals. They complete your top 40 on row 20. 41st, it's going to be Ryan Clark with his weaker qualifying points of the season ahead of Steve G. And then we have Gianluca Rospa ahead of David Pilcher, with Ben Knowles and Adam Lynch completing the starting order. But Adam Lynch having technical issues that prevent him from going from qualified, so he's got to come through for the rear of the field. But the grid is set, ladies and gentlemen. We're all green to go. And without further ado, it's over to Philip Hammer to say lights out and away we go for round number 7 of the championship, and away they roar down towards turn 1. 60 minutes of racing action, and Philip Hammer gets the field away as they break the way to the opening bend. It's tight as they come into the opening corner, but everyone seems to be safely into that braking zone so far. The whole field weaves and winds its way in, and right now looking a bit further back, they're 3 wide towards the rear as Matthew Hunter already going in the attack, trying to thread the needle past DG. He does so, trying to attack there what is done other than Tobias Hutchinson. But back to the front of the field we go as all drivers make the way through the horseshoe hairpin for the first time, and as they do, Harvey Wheeler making his way forward, trying to go batting. We've had a bit of an instant further back, I believe. A couple of drivers running a bit wide, but so far no spins, no major shunts from anybody. Great to see as they all carry on. But all these drivers right now together. As we look back, there's DJ and Ryan Clark now getting close together, and Clark's going to try and look for the move, not going to work out, and Adam Lynch already up for the back of the field to 39th place as car off into the distance, but I believe that's Hendrik Zilk had a bit of a moment. He's going to have to wait to rejoin, and Hendrik Zilk being escorted out there, although we can't give you a reason as to why. What we can do is show you that Philip Hammer's still leading after the opening run of the infield, and right now 4 tenths ahead of Hayden Young, but not too much change at the front. Jack Wyborn's gaining some ground, and up from 7th to 6th overall, still second in the interclass, bringing Harvey Wheeler along for the ride, but Harvey, I think right now, just tucking in here and playing it smart and safe as they roar the way past the static camera. All these guys pushing on as much as possible, and even the speed and ferocity with which they come past us, absolutely epic to behold. There's going to be some battling there down here to the bus stop chicane. Speaking of which, Jeffrey Damon going on the attack. And the well-read motorsport driver having to try and find his way past Stephen Parker Hamilton. And Parker Hamilton hasn't really gained or lost anything since the start of this race in the club class. But Tom Wheeler and Jim Fox both have gained overall positions by comparison. So a bit of an interesting start there. I wonder what the plan is for Parker Hamilton as Martin King's Acura follows Jeffrey Damon just behind there on camera as they make their way towards the end of the open lap. Also there, Jordan Maymar and Christopher Bates together as they come towards the end of lap number 1. We had a bit of an incident for Hendrik Zilka. We've had an incident for Pete Cox, so we'll be hearing in my ear. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can. All drivers going to cross that timeline. Not too much fighting towards the front, but definitely fighting in amongst the club and into drives further down the order. Speaking of which, Maymar versus Bates on the inside, because the Bates tries to go around the outside to take back full place in club. It's going to be 2 wide as they come through, 2 by 2 further behind this. There's Ryan Abbots as well. Maymar gets back ahead of Bates, and meanwhile Abbots trying to look for the move there to hold off. James Conley does so, and now trying to poke his way past Graham Vivers around the outside, and Abbots there has got a lot more confidence in the rotation that Aston Martin and its ability to accelerate out of the corners. I wonder if Abbots has got a bit of rear wing on that car compared to James Conley and Graham Vivers in front, because that's not a car that's set up for low speed, or if they've done a means of getting rid of that rear wing or indeed turn it down to 0, well suddenly they've done something very magical with that car. And that's not to be disgruntled about them as James Conley squeezes well out the inside. So Conley realises there that Abbots is quicker through the corners and decides to try and pounce him while there's the door open. And the Team UKSR Hill driver now moves back up into 6th place in the club class as Carl going around. It's sideways there for Daniel Pays. Old losing Carl's amnesia, but he hasn't forgotten how to catch that car. Well done to him, and he brings it back on. And as they say, we can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you can definitely see some of the finest tricks in the world from some of the older drivers on the grid as he gets it back together and makes his way back up onto the oval banking. But coming back towards the front of the field, already Philip Hammer now 1.3 seconds clear as Michael Schitzer-Kerbach slowly losing Hayden Young. Actually looks just staying behind. You can already see the top 10 definitely going to a bit of a slow mode here in terms of just focusing on running together as we jump aboard with Harvey Wheeler. Now note there, he's only just got up into 6th gear, such as how long the gears are in this Ferrari. You never really want to touch 6th gear if you can help yourself to it. And Wheeler right now are running all over the bumper of the MRC Endurance team at spot 291, albeit to come into that braking zone. Right now Wheeler really playing passive, and I think the game plan is just simply work with the drivers in front to gain the race time if you can. But it's going to be a lot easier said than done. There will be a bit of a breaking point here where Wheeler says, I've had enough of sitting there. As in the end, where I think Wyborn knows it's coming, he goes defensive there, does Wyborn. So Wyborn doesn't like the idea of Wheeler getting past And I think you can understand why, because Jack Wybord's pretty more concerned about chasing down Ashley Brooks, who's literally only a second up the road and in the pack in front of him. Meanwhile, we'll come back to Tom Wheeler, your club leader. He's got Jim Fox right behind him. Fox has really made some good progress here since the start of this race. But I think we're seeing everything come together today for Jim Fox so far, albeit we are only 4 minutes in. Let's caution ourselves over that one. We don't want to put the commentator's curse on this man. But right now, he's shown some great moments of brilliance over the course of the season, but it's not all married itself together, where he's been very strong on pace. He hasn't been strong on strategy, where he's been very strong on strategy and pace. He's not been good with consistency, but right now, it does seem as though Fox is looking to really be starting to get everything together. We'll be interested to see how this goes. But meanwhile, we look back to Max Wheeler, who has the presence of Timo Gertner behind him. And Gertner right now looking for the moves. The German driver as he goes up the inside. And goodness me, Max Wheeler picking up a huge overspeed there. As Tom Cordy just lifting off. Weave away. Max is going to go deep into the braking zone here. This is not comfortable for him. And I think there, Tom Cordy was lifted off to save a significant amount of fuel. What this means is they make their way onwards. Well, Max Wheeler is going to push Tom Cordy along onto the oval bank. And a bit of bump drafted here as they make the way through. And we get a face full of Audi there that almost wipes the camera off the back of the car. But as they come charging along here, Tom Cordy right now will go a bit higher there. He doesn't want to be bump drafted by Max Wheeler. He's trying to say to him, Max, go past me. I don't want you pushing me along. So Max Wheeler gets the message in the end. And here they go 3 wide down towards turn number 1. And look at Timo Gertner going low here. He's going to go for a 2-for-1 special. And Timo Gertner goes on through. Cordy and Wheeler both back off there. Let the pro driver go. But right behind them, well, Daniel Kovac on the inside of their sight. Anti wanted to get away from Mikey Stewart as he clears Stewart in the process. It's the battle of the 3 Ferraris here as they come through, but in the end, Daniel Kovac makes that move happen for 9th place in Pro, and Stuart and Anti now together just behind. As meanwhile, more fighting going on towards the rear of the field, as Steve G being passed there by Ryan Clark, very brave on the brakes, and Ryan Clark now up into 11th place in the club class. Nice move from him, albeit Steve G there now trying to get together in the Corvette. That's not what he's done for top end speed. It'll definitely be a bit of a nice car to handle coming out of these hairpins. If he gets it right, that Corvette will be very quick for the infield section and be a bit lacking on the straights by comparison. Now we have lost Pete Cox to this race and Hendrik Zilk. 2 drives out already. We need to get some replays of what happened to them, and we will. We promise you that. Oh, what's this? Ashley Brooks, our leader in the interclass. He's got it wrong. That's at turn number 7. I think he's done what Daniel Page did earlier on, but he's made a bit of a ham sandwich out of it by comparison. And the Access Sports Simworks driver right now, well, definitely he's going to have a bone to pick with himself, I think, unless somebody's helped him on his way. But Jack Wyburn is now your interclass leader, and Max Wheeler's moved up into 2nd place as a result. And we need to find out what exactly happened there in a very quick time. But as the driver's coming down here right now and make the way through the bus stop chicane again. Well, for all of our drivers, it's definitely been a relatively safe start for everyone. There have been a couple of bumps and a few scrapes, but for the most part, it's been what we'd come to expect here for the UKSimRacing competitors, which is clean and fair driving. And at Daytona, everyone, I think, waited for later on. But right now, Ashley Brooks, I think he's got a place to catch as he's going to try and draft his way around the outside at Daniel Kovac. But of course, the higher you go, the more road you have to take, the more circumference of the bend you extend. And as he makes his way in front there, Daniel Kovac simply lets it go and says to him, no, Ashley, you can go straight in front of me. I'm not going to fight this. So as the brakes they go, Kovac then looks up the inside and says, actually, no, I've changed my mind. And as they come through the corner, well, Ashley Brooks here finds the DRX Sport Ferrari there and has to give it a bit more space. This only brings Mikey Stewart, Tom Cordy and Sight Anstey into the mix. And also Darren Sharples, let's sort of forget about him as he sits there as well. But another driver's made some gradual progress. Luke Sherlock, as he makes way through the 280 driver and the privateer for 5.9 Academy. Well, as he makes way in towards the hairpin right now. Behind, Graham Viva's taking a bit of a prod and poke versus the second of the UKSimRacing Stuart cars, Christoph Bates. But right now, the 12th place into runner for Phoenix Racing. Good to see him back on the grid again. We've missed him for a couple of rounds. In his BMW M4 Evo, he's been a lot of pressure from the interdrives around him. Brian Abbott's and James Conley over the back of him like a bad rash. Abbott's looking up the inside, and in the end boxed in a little bit. And James Conley carries too much speed, and as he does so, he finds Christoph Bates. And Bates has gone off. Conley follows him off there, and I don't think that was planned for the team UKSimRacing drivers, but you'd be excused for thinking it was. And in the end, Bates brings it back on the road, but James Conley's going to go around the outside, I think, on the radio to each other. And I think they've said that Conley right now is the quicker driver, and, well, has been able to recover that quite quickly by comparison. But goodness me, what a bit of a moment there, as being, well, back at the front of the field, going into the bus stop chicane. Oh, Tim Probert there hops and skips his way over the sausage curves. That's not the way you want to do it, Tim. And the Syndic Racing driver there with the suspension of that McLaren has definitely been shaken. And, well, it may be stirred as well, but it won't, unlike the British counterpart 007. But he wanted a martini after that one. Indeed, he might want a martini to settle down his nerves after the race. But here comes Jack Wybod in the draft meanwhile. And the interleader right now will want these pro drivers to sort this out. As in the end, Michael Schitz cared about goes high. Remember, he lost a couple of places at the start of this race. Wybod's going to try and pick make his way around the outside as well of Tim Probert. And as they come down in towards turn number 1, does he get it done on the brakes? The answer is not quite. Tim Probert on the inside. Wybert's going to scoop it all the way round. He just about does, so he's got to be careful running wide there. More on that shortly. And Miller Boyd right now watches on, but Jack Wyber just being held behind as we ride aboard the dashboard here of your 118, the SimRacing Bulls home hero, Miller Boyd. And right now looking to get a bit more involved, as behind them, not on camera, we do have a fight going on between Daniel Kovac and Ashley Brooks, and that's bringing Max Wheeler right into company and play there. A bit of grass being taken up by a driver. I think that was essentially grass trimmings from Tim Probert being thrown over the cars behind. And right now Miller Boyd comes into the second of the hairpins and waiting once again. With his Ferrari, of course, not quite as quick on the acceleration states compared to McLaren. It's all about that top end speed in the draft. So Miller Boyd's got to be patient. His game plan will be to make the moves happen into the bus stop chicane or turn number 1. They're coming out there, and that's why he's running nice and wide out the corner. He wants to extend the exit, build up the speed nice and early. It does cost a bit of time next. He's running a much longer track, but now as he makes his way up speed here into 5th, then gradually up to 6th. Right now, gets him ready for a potential opportunity, although it may come later rather than now into the bus stop. It may be going more into what will be the opening bend. But as this race comes towards the end of its opening 10 minutes, we take a look back at some of the big moments, ladies and gentlemen, from the start of it. And so, as we come back to how the race started, indeed, we very quickly went for the grid to go in green flag racing. It's always the way. We have a very short formation lap here at Daytona, and we stay with the blimp camera that we left behind, and it was Philip Hammer who took us green. But as the field made the one down, everyone getting away safely. A couple of bigger gaps there, but to be fair, I think some drivers perhaps just been caught out by the race start procedure. It always happens, and they made the way into the opening corner, and 2 by 2 they all came on through, and it was great to see everyone there coming on through pretty much side by side, although a few drivers decided to be a bit daring in the rear of the picture, go 3 wide. Can you blame them for it? I don't think you can, to be fair, and plenty of excitement to be had as they then made the way in towards the hairpin, the horseshoe hairpin, all together, and absolutely beautiful poetry in motion there, albeit a couple of drivers did end up having a bit of a touch. 2 drivers went to the grass, and that's going to be our first source of a replay, I do believe, as we come down to what happened to Ben Knowles and a couple other drivers. So, and also we should point out Peacock's up to the start from the pit lane, I do believe. But Ben Knowles was right at the back of the field. Oh, lost the rear of the car. We did not catch that on the blimp camera, or if we did, we didn't spot it with our eagle eyes. And Ben Knowles getting it wrong there, coming through the chicane. Heavy fuel and cold tyres. Not a happy combination through the medium speed chicane. But John Butler and I think Jack Barker had a bit of a conversation as they made the way down into the horseshoe hairpin. And we look at Jordan Butler here, side by side. Oh, pranged the rear of one of the Ferraris. And Jack Barker, an innocent bystander on the outside, just being collected there by Jordan Butler, who in the end, I think, catching the rear of Daniel Pay's car. And, well, we will try and get on board there from Butler. And this was Butler. That was Daniel Pay's in front of the old duty cars. And where it says on the rear wing. And in the end, just a bit too late on the brakes and had to scoot the car to left. Did the right thing, pull into the space that was available. Just sadly, I don't think he realised that Jack Barker was going to be a bit of a casualty in the process. Then we had this for Hendrik Zilka only a couple of quarters later. And this was your old duty cars 212 driver in the interclass. Came through turn 5 and the kink catches out somebody, it always does, and sadly Hendrik Zilka being caught out there. That's cold tyres, heavy fuel and high speed. A toxic combination there, and in the end Hendrik Zilka finds out how quickly that toxicity can end your race. But he's ended up in the barrier, and unfortunately that's the total pit lane there with collapsed suspension. We also had this for Pete Cox on the open lap. Now, I do believe he had started from the pit lane, and so it's a bit of a lonely space. Made his way into the bus stop chicane. Somebody else went straight on there. I think that was Jordan Butler, and Pete Cox got it all wrong, straight into the tyre barrier. And as quickly as his race started, sadly, it was ended. But a few laps later, we had this for Ryan Clark. Now, this is the Spectre racing driver making his way on through. Not quite sure what's on the back of the car. That's a new feature. And as he made his way in towards the second hairpin, just outbroke himself and in the end went very, very deep. And wanted to bring the car back on very gradually. But in doing so, they found himself in a battle with Deep Motorsports, Gianluca Rospo. And Will Clark was able to hold him at bay in the end. At the time, they were fighting for, I believe, 11th place in the club class. And Ryan Clark making amends for his innocent mistake. But then we did have a bit of a moment for Tobias Hutchinson. This was Hutchinson as well, getting a bit wrong. And as he came down to that braking zone, right on the back there of the SimCast racing car, tapped it on the rear and went sideways. So as Ryan Clark went to the outside of the circuit, in the end, the Hexagon slow drive, Tobias Hutchinson went to the inside of the circuit, but they both got it back together. Now, as they did so, we did have a bit of a moment for, I believe it was Daniel Pay's who had it all go wrong early on in the race. And what exactly happened to Daniel Pay's? I think it was a big error, and can we find out? I think we might be able to. And well, no, in fact, we were not going to be able to. It was the moment we scooped himself wide coming out to turn number 7. But we do see Daniel Page battling here, where Heck's gone slowed. None other than the 377 Tobias Kunsen. Certainly enjoying some good battling through the hairpin. But outside of that, we did also have a couple of other moments, including this moment, Crystal Bates and James Conley. And well, both of them getting it wrong at the second hairpin, separately for Team UK Sim Racing. Bates carrying way too much speed into the corner, realised it released the brakes, but sadly, he's only going to find his way to the tyre barrier. And then James Conley saying, well, if you can do it, Chris, I can do it too. Albeit that's not the way you want to do it. And I think there, James Conley also carrying too much speed. So two of them both having a bit of a moment as we make our way back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll pick up from where we left off. Indeed, we freeze time so that we don't miss a minute of the racing. And well, Harvey Wheeler makes his way on through. And a huge shout out, of course, to Arturo Mayorga for his brilliant software that helped give us the opportunity to be able to bring you the replays of the race in action. And indeed, an upgrade recently to our iRacing live timing software that allows us to freeze time in the post-round broadcast format. But as we see Harvey Wheeler, well, right now he will want this position to be frozen in time. He will not want Adam Watson getting past him. Although Wheeler has already made his way from 6th to 3rd, so he's rapidly gaining. Adam Watson's followed him through, and right now, well, the fastest lap of the race set by Philip Hammer, a 44.57, Harvey Wheeler 44.63. So it does seem as though Harvey Wheeler right now has got a bone to pick and looking to make amends for Le Mans, but he's going to need to close down quite the gap. 4.5 seconds already to Hammer, and indeed Hayden Young has dropped 2 seconds away from Hammer, so it's looking as though this field is spreading out up front. Wheeler's got to get his skates on, but coming back to Jack Wybom, as he continues to follow Michael Shizuke back, and Shizuke back had a bit of a slow start compared to some of his peers, but right now Jack Wybom will be very grateful to have him with him, because we know that Shizuke back's got a lot of pace. Wybom will know that as well, given how they all qualified, and therefore he'll want to follow the second of the pole promotion with ASR drivers along. And pole promotion with ASR, seeing their run of 1-2s ended, sadly, in the previous round at Le Mans. The flip side of the coin, of course, being that Shizuke back on course today to bring home a good result. And with it, help extend the team's lead at the top of the team's championship. And right now, Jack Wybom, being selfish, he just wants to see if he can bring home this in to win. And doing so, well, MRC Endurance Team were very grateful for that. And well, his teammates did. Mark Hamilton still a bit further back. We'll come on to him shortly. As meanwhile, Timo Gertner versus Miller Boyd. And in fact, Miller Boyd powers his way around the outside there. And Gertner decides just to play it smart, play it safe, and not fight too hard. I think the right call there as they make their way deeper and deeper into the race distance. But from talking about Jack Wybom, you've then got Tim Pro a bit further behind, and then you've got Ashley Brooks, the second man in the interclass. And this is what we're SimRacing driver right now, bringing Daniel Kovac along with him, and then Mikey Stewart as well. He's already gone for 18th to 12th place. Good start for Mikey, no doubt about it. Although, I think right now he's got a problem behind him, and his engine has gone from being 6 cylinders to being 16 cylinders, because it's been pushed along by the V10 of an Audi as they make their way across that timeline. And well, Max Wheeler right now definitely trying to say to Mikey Stewart, get a move on, I'll help you along. As meanwhile, too wide there, Science goes all into the brakes versus Darren Sharples, gets the move done just like that. And Science, a bold, brave, and audacious move. And well, almost hitting the rear top corner in the process there. But I think for Sai, he knows exactly how late he can brake. He's no stranger to daring moves in turn 1 at Daytona. If anybody remembers some of his antics all the way back in that season 10, I want to say, where he did find himself in a couple of free wides through there. And every time, somehow, some way, he managed to get the car stopped no matter how late he broke and how wide he went into the corner. However, I did say about the track limits at turn 1, those are very important. They have been monitored much more closely now on iRacing compared to how they used to be. You will notice at turn 1 there's that large runoff area, which typically is the flat from the start of the tri-oval banking onto the flatter region before it goes into the second part of the banking. And what you would normally see is that drivers would intentionally go deep there. They were allowed to do so the best part of about 4 to 5 months ago, and they could use it to slingshot off the corner and pick up speed, but they could also use it to intentionally run deep if they got it wrong. Now if they run deep through there, it's very likely they will pick up firstly an off track at instant point, but also an automated slowdown penalty. So they've got to keep 2 wheels within the white lines, or they've really got to sacrifice a lot of pace if they are going to go wide there. Otherwise it will be a slowdown and it is going to hurt. So that's why you've seen drivers being a little bit more placative with regards to turn 1 compared to how they used to be very abusive towards the track limits of the corner. But of course, that's iRacing there, tightening up those track limits for the purposes to make sure that everyone races on the defined tarmac rather than decides to race wherever they go. It's not quite NASCAR track limits, if you know, you know. But as Luke Sherlock makes his way onwards, we're still feeling Dean Collins around. And right now, two McLaren drivers here having to be a bit peaceful to each other to make up ground. But we've got a bit of a change here in the club class because there's Jim Fox, and right now finds himself leading the class and trying to make his way past the prior Casper Brotner as he battles on the outside of turn 1. He carries all the speed he can, and Tom Wheeler has fallen behind. So how exactly has Fox found his way past Tom Wheeler, many would ask? We will get a replay of that very shortly, as right now it's going to be pandemonium here as Tom Wheeler finds his way through. Steve Hobbs falling backwards. And Steve Hobbs being robbed to places there, the worst racing team ever 44 driver. But the good news is he's summoned reinforcements. He's got Powney and Bacon together, and he's going to work with them now as the pro driver in amongst his inter-sister teammates. And well, they come up towards what will be turn number 6. Powney being the direct teammate of Hobbs, of course. And Tom Wheeler definitely squeezes his way through, and Jeffrey Damon as well. Quite a sequence there. But we need to know how exactly Jim Fox made his way past Tom Wheeler, and well, that happened, I believe, on lap number 4. This has happened some time ago, and here's a quick replay to explain. So this was, they made the way down towards turn at number 1, and Jim Fox in the end looked up the inside. Tom got it under brake and went a little bit deep there. You notice the car just twitched on the bump of the road surface transition, and Fox in the end showed no signs of twitching at all and just simply scooped his way through. How about that? Lovely move from him, no doubt. But then we did have this only moments ago. Casper Brotner and Jim Fox had plenty of fun and fighting. And this was coming down towards turn 1. Fox on the outside, Brotner on the inside. And as much as that Porsche's got confidence, I can tell you one thing, even it will have its grip limits. And Casper Brotner making it very clear, as meanwhile Steve Hobbs, a bit of contact there with Jim Fox. He tried to get the car back together, and that is what set them all off. So that's how it all chopped and changed. Then suddenly, as Hobbs tried to get it all back together, innocent contact between the two drivers. Your number 116 driver there forward all the way to the back, but I think just getting the car back together, regrouping and carried on as we carry on in time, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do come back, still 3/4 race to go. We have sadly had Nathan Anstis toe to pit lane quite recently, so we will get a replay of that in due course. But definitely right now, this race in a bit more of a follow leader style race, or work together, but that's only going to tighten the tension towards the end of the race. The pit stops will definitely now be the fault of many a driver, and what happens afterwards is anybody's guess. Because once you've got that one pit stop out the way, we're only expecting the one stay, as this is a 60-minute race. It's not an endurance race, although it will be a test of mental endurance, this one. Well, then we will see some drivers probably fuel the car to go all the way to the end with an aggressive fuel load, whereby they don't need to fuel save. It will cost them more time, and we'll see those who go for under-fueling slightly because they think they'll be in a slipstream pack. So why would you take enough fuel to do all the laps without needing to fuel save? Because you're just wasting time. That's the theory. But we may see some cars cough and splutter across the finish line, as we've seen in many a season in the past. And I can tell you about that firsthand when it came to season 14, taking my first win of that season, where in the end, the main rival literally ran out of fuel with only 50 metres to the finish line. Indeed, it was very close. Although my rival's name does escape my brain, that's not intentional, by the way. I should be clear. I'm getting a bit forgetful in my older age. I'm 33, but right now I get the feeling I've got the memory of about a 50-year-old at this point. That's not to say that 50-year-olds don't remember things. But as far as Hunter makes his way through, right now, well, whether he's old or young, I'll tell you one thing, he's just continued to follow David Pilchard around. And meanwhile, David Pilchard definitely keeping himself together there as they battle for 9th place in the club class. And Jack Barker finding his way around the outside of James Conley. And how many seasons ago was it that we saw these two battling in the same class together? And well, Jack Barker, of course, has come a long way since his early days. And many of you may remember, of course, he was the madman who once raced the Ford GT. And well, taking his first ever series win all the way back in what was, I want to say, season 8 in the Ford GT. Goodness me, it's been such a long time since we saw the old GT3/GT2 car and taking that win at Sebring. And well, he makes well through right now, one of the very most emotional sim racing moments of his sim racing career, and indeed one of the most commemorated moments, and you can't blame him for it. And indeed, the whole grid came to him at that point and said to him what an epic drive it was. But right now, finds himself with James Conley, and indeed the two old rivals here trying to find a way to work together in this race. As he makes his way on through, James Conley takes a bit of a peek there and simply says to him, you know what, I'm not going to go for it, I'm just pulling out the drafts, that way I don't overspeed into the back of you. But from the back of the field to the front of the field we go. And Philip Hammer right now definitely running away a little bit, although Hayden Young, he says, hold on Philip, I've got a point to prove here, as he goes 2 tenths faster and sets a new fastest lap, 2.7 seconds, he's dropping Harvey Wheeler as well. So, interesting. Hammer and Young, they seem to have found a way to outpace Harvey Wheeler, but is Harvey Wheeler perhaps focused on fuel saving a little bit compared to pace? Perhaps he's doing the opposite at Le Mans. And decided his Ferrari's never going to be able to win here, given the nature of the circuit and the differences in the straight. It's not going to be able to win by brute force. He's going to have to use brains over brawn for this one. We'll have to see whether that's the way it goes. But meanwhile, Speaking of pro drivers who are decided to go all out, Tim Probert, Daniel Kovac, and also Mikey Stewart together here, and bringing Max Wheeler with them. Although I think Max Wheeler is going to be a bit of an antagonist at this point, trying to get them all to fight each other. And we do ride aboard here with Mikey Stewart for Access in the Sport with Sim Coach. As it builds up the speed there, they of course all follow Ashley Brooks on the round, and well, we're rolling the way through the corners, and so close to that tyre barrier on the inside. They get closer and closer every time they race here, and I get the feel right now that tyre barrier is not moving, it's just drivers exploiting track limits as much as they possibly can. You always do so, of course. It's all about having the fun, and as they make the way through. Harry Shaw, by the way, is the name of the rival I was referring to earlier that I raced with at Daytona here all those years ago. And well, as these drivers make the way down right now, Mikey Stewart, well, he's going to be thinking his Ferrari. He's got a Ferrari in front of him, plus 2 McLarens. Those McLarens quicker on the acceleration, but not as quick perhaps when they get to that very top end speed. But right now, the one thing the Ferrari does have is a bit of a fuel saving advantage as Daniel Kovac there sends his Ferrari into the stratosphere. And well, here comes Mikey Stewart. That's not the way either of them wanted it to go. And right now, they're going to need to sort this out very quickly. And well, Kovac decides from taking his Ferrari skybound, he's now going to bring it down to earth and just simply tuck back in. I think a smart call there, as they powered away towards the end of this lap and go on to lap number 12 very shortly. But behind them, oh goodness me, here's a bit of a chop and change. Site Anti trying to go high around the outside of Tom Cordy. Meanwhile, Darren Sharples decides to frustrate things, pushing Cordy forward, tries to make it 3 wide there. Tom Cordy goes defensive, Anti on the outside, and Sharples now tries to squeeze in. He will, and Site Anti there being robbed blindly, and well, Site Anti's going to drop back to 6th place there in the interclass. Bit of a chop and change, and Tom Cordy there, he feels there was a bit of a pin cushion from Darren Sharples. He pretty much pushed him along, and on the other side, we had Site Anti trying to push and probe him from the right, and well, Tom Cordy in the end just held his right to the racing line, and well, doing so, keeping to his guns, that's what it's all about. But as the Ford Mustang try here continues to push onwards, we need to head back in time and find out what exactly happened to Nathan Anstis. So this was Nathan Anstis making his way around a bit of a lonely race for Anstis, and well, something tells me that he made a mistake towards the start of the race, and well, I think there was a mistake that we haven't quite picked up on, and in the end just decided to come into the pits there. So perhaps retiring the car, perhaps a technical issue, but Anstis' race coming to an abrupt halt. How about that? Completely unexpected, and Nathan Anstis out of the running as we head back to your live racing. So as we do come back, something I'm hearing in my ear right now is that Nathan Anstis may have been involved in a little bit of an altercation at the start, and with that it's pushed him off the back of the field and done some damage to the car. I think they've decided to bring that car in early, and I think Nathan Anstis' race has come to an end. They're going to keep the car in the pits, but I don't think it's going to be going back out there again today, which is a shame for Nathan. It's definitely been a season where he's had a good start to it, and then suddenly, after a couple of rounds, it's all got a bit backwards. But right now, see one driver who's going forward, Jim Fox, the leader of the club class right now, still pulling away as we have Tom Wheeler close behind, and Wheeler watching at the distance. That Porsche is looking so quick here. It's very interesting, the Porsche 992, because it's one of those cars whereby we always say it's the handling car, but if you do go in on straight line speed, it can be very rapid. And remember, of course, its predecessor, the Porsche 991 car, all the way back in the late 2010s era of GT3 racing, it was the record holder for the highest top speed achieved in GT World Challenge Europe at Paul Ricard. Balance of performance actually gave the Porsche back then the highest straight end speed, as well as being a very good cornering car, and when it seemed to struggle was in the medium to high speed corners. It's where it's held back. But right now, Robin Pownier and Tom Wheeler might be holding, well no, so Robin Pownier and Matt Bacon, I should say, might be holding Tom Wheeler back here as the worst race the team ever drives and trying to go around the outside of him. This is going to put a fork in the midst of the club race, and right now Pownier gets on through, but Matt Bacon cannot. So Bacon right now being held at bay here, and he's going to be saying to Tom Wheeler, not over the microphone, but he was saying under his helmet, "Come on Tom, let me go, that's my teammate in front, I don't need you in the way." But right now I think Bacon's going to be a bit inventive here as we see a driver recovering a car, and I want to say that's a Ferrari getting itself back together. That's Mikey Stewart, and Stewart's right towards the front, and well, Stewart here goes side by side with Matt Bacon. Bacon squeezes his way through, and well, in the end, definitely there making it work out. And well, the Swede, I think, others would have backed out there, but not so at Matt Bacon, and we could have been cooked by it, but not so as Mikey Stewart in the very yellow headlights. That's how you can tell that's Mikey Stewart's car there, and one of the limited number of cars out there with different colour headlights. I wonder how they do that, to be fair, and I do wonder how much it cost them to do it. But as he makes well through, right now Mikey Stewart recognisable, not just for his headlights, but also for falling down the field. We've also had a bit of an incident off camera for Steve G, which we'll come to shortly. Gianluca Rosberg and Ryan Clark, well, these two have found each other. Well, they found each other earlier on, where Ryan Clark definitely made a bit of an error and had to come back on just ahead of Rosberg. But Rosberg right now has got a bone to pick here as he's trying to find his way into 11th of the club class. Behind him, there's Ben Knowles, who's trying to follow at a distance. Rosberg still behind here as he comes through. And we're rolling nice and close, but can he make a move out of it? The answer seems to be no at the time. And the BMW M4 Evo as well, very quick on the straights there, but you can see the pressure that Clark is feeling right now. He's not feeling happy with Rosbo behind him, and Rosbo here getting closer and closer. Ryan Clark wouldn't normally be pulling up high on the banking, then going back down, then going back onto the racing line down towards the bus stop chicane, unless he seriously felt he was at risk of Rosbo making a move on him, and he wouldn't want him to come through. Now making the way through the left to right left here. Rosbo picking up a bit of understeer, does hit the curbs quite high, but gets away with it that time. Better run actually, and here he goes with the overspeed as he builds up little by little, and you can see now pushing upwards of 150 miles an hour. Halfway through the Search 12 banking, we'll come to pass, and we see the Dibby symbol there on the back of Ryan Clark. Not quite sure what that's about. I'm going to have to have a chat with the Spectre Racing drivers. Rosbo puts his wipers on to wave goodbye potentially to Ryan Clark. The only problem is now that he's out of the draft, he suddenly hits top end speed limits, and well, that's going to give Ryan Clark the inside in towards turn 1, and will that battle stay as it is? Ryan Clark hold his ground, no way through, but hold up, falling down. Oh my goodness, and I was going to say falling down the order, but that's more than falling down the order, that's falling off a wheel. That's Science's Team UKSR car, and the Ferrari crawled along here. As much as Sai wants to try and get to the pit lane, I think that's going to be one of the longest journeys in the world to do so. I think Sai's going to get that car towed. We'll have to get a replay of that shortly. As meanwhile, Adam Watson, well, he holds off Michael Shinsuke back still with Harvey Wheeler just in front, and these three still working together. Although Watson has made his way past Shinsuke back recently, and hit the pole position with an ASR driver, maybe getting a degree of frustration here in the fact they do seem to be swapping the place back and forth every so often. But free drive still trying to find a way to close down a 3-second gap to Hayden Young. But as they make their way onwards, we have had some drama, and therefore the only thing we can do is, when there is drama, is we find out what's caused it. Just before that, we come back to Max Wheeler. He still glued himself to the back of the 6 cylinders of the Ferrari, Daniel Kovac. And the V10 Audi right now doing its best to make sure it finishes third in the Interclass with no pressure from Darren Sharples as possible. Speaking of which, Darren Sharples and Casper Brotner, the two old dudes in cars drivers, they'll be on the radio to each other. And I think this could be now on the radio from Darren Sharples saying to Casper, let's go hunting. You want a pro place, I want an inter place. And well, they're just up the road by 5.5 seconds. We'll have to see if that's the way it works out in reality. As Mikey Stewart goes battling here with Matt Bacon, and right now we're in fact going battling with Robin Paranier as well, and Paranier just alongside, and they come through the corner, and Tom Wheeler in the end trying to also find a way to get a bit more involved. And for Wheeler, this is getting a bit of a frustrating race now, because Jim Fox is still at the head of this group, but the problem is he's got these interim pro drivers. They're being relatively peaceful towards each other, and that's the term I'm going to use loosely. You think I'll be referring to a world war rather than race on circuits. What it means is that they are jostling a little bit, but not too much. But I think that's going to be the worry of Wheeler here. He's going to have to really fuel save to get ahead of this group or get close to Fox. The only problem is he's in the car that's got the weakest fuel saving potential. This Mustang is very aggressive on fuel usage, but if you do start to push it towards the rev limiter, you will need to do a lot of lift and coasting it. It is a car that's not typically known for its ability to fuel save, and therefore the thought process is you really want to go. But when everyone's got similar top end speed and is in the draft to one another, you can't really go. You've really got to be a bit more with regards to a brainy style of race rather than a brawny style. As they make the way out, but right now we'll leave them be and head back in time to find out what happened to Mikey Stewart. So here we go, back in time. This one, lap number 13. In towards the horseshoe hairpin he went. As he did so, well, looks so here, he's made a bit of an error. Takes too much curb, in fact. You can see there the rear of the car, the rear right dropping off of the apex curb, and that's what sent it spinning around. A tiny error, but such a crucial one. That's what dropped him down. Steve G also had a little bit of blunder of his own on lap number 13. This was him battling at the time. Had a good battle there with, I believe, Ryan Clark. Went too wide. Oh, no, and taking too much curb there. Going through the chicane, hooks the front right tyre over the curb. And, well, Steve G making a mistake that we've all made at Daytona, and you can't blame him for it. Too much curb. Front right tyre gets caught over it, and then it gets pulled away. But otherwise, he was doing a good job at that point, battling for a length in the club class. Then we had this for Cy Anthony. And Cy Anthony having the mother of all moments, I believe, on lap number 14. So where did it happen? Will make his way through the kink, takes all the curb, the car twitches, runs wide. He got it together initially, so where did he go wrong? Oh, goodness me, he tried to rejoin, and it all went, oh, goodness me. And then collected the car there, I believe, at Tom Cordy's Ford Mustang, and also there, making a bit of a bash into Darren Sharples' car as well. And suddenly, it all came apart. And this is what it looked like from on board with Cy Anthony. And, well, carried all that speed, hit the curb. At this point, he's a passenger. He's got to go straight on, wants to get the brakes on. And what I think he thought he could do is take the motorcycle hairpin, but in the end, he's come sliding across and ping-ponged his way between the two drivers. Have a sight and see all in pieces, just like that. Not the way we wanted it to go whatsoever. And sadly, a race all in bits for sight and today. And, well, we're coming back, and as we do, a bit of drama there, but still, the theme is a lot of drivers who are into the pits, it's primarily for repair work. Although saying that, we have had Christopher Bates come in and Daniel Page, so we might be starting to see the first of the strategic stops, albeit Tom Cordy forced to pit, understandably due to the damage, but I think we are heading towards pit stop territory as Casper Brockner comes in, and so does Darren Sharple. So they're starting to work out their strategy together, and, well, I think now some drivers have found pairs. I wonder how many drivers will dictate their strategy based on who's around them and who pits first. And it wouldn't be surprised if you're Ashley Brooks, for example, if he feels as though he's been doing very well pace-wise with Miller Boyd, if he sees Boyd come into the pits, he will follow straight in rather than carry on, just because naturally he has got a partner he can work with, even if they're not on the same team. It is the classic, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, until they're not when the alliance breaks up. But as we do see a bit behind, Tim Probert still following on, and then Daniel Kovac, who's trying to drop Max Wheeler. I think he's had enough of hearing a V10 Audi engine right behind him, although how could you have heard enough of an Audi V10 engine, a V10 being one of the best formulas of engines, although I know there's plenty of V8 fans out there right now who will say praise the V8, and indeed I would say you've been watching way too much Mad Max. Okay, only joking, Mad Max is epic. All right, now as the drivers make the way through, Tim Probert getting ready to potentially just siphon a bit more fuel saving off the back of Ashley Brooks and keep a gap to Daniel Kovac at 2 seconds. But with some drama that has occurred out there, and as we get closer to the halfway point of this race, we come back to Gianluca Rospo, still trying to knock on the door there of Ryan Clark. Gets a really good run through the kink there, and Rospo, I think he's running more rear wing on that car. I'm going to go out there and say he's got about 2 clicks more rear wing on it, and that's why Rospo is looking so confident for the infield. But why? When he goes to overtake Ryan Clark at the banking, he runs out of speed. He just cannot go quicker. It's a tough one here because Clark is a bit wide as well, but look at the way Rospo's car right now. Yes, it's mid-engine rear-wheel drive. We have the drivetrain considerations as well as the car platforms. But that McLaren is looking too composed not to be running a significant amount of rear wing on it. And he's probably gone for what is a lowish downforce setup, whereas Ryan Clark has probably gone for a minimum downforce setup as they head onwards up towards the bus stop chicane. You can see that Rospo gets very close. Clark goes defensive. And as they make the way through, Rospo's now got to try and get the best possible run out of the corner. As I look at my content booth window, and I do see Tom Wheeler's headlights make the way down to pit road, and Wheeler is now into his pit box and being serviced. And Wheeler's decided to pit quite early in the club class. I think that's a bit of a gamble for Wheeler, but I think that's been driven by frustration of being around the worst racing team ever cars of Pioneer, Bacon and Hobbs, and the fact that cost him time to Fox. But here we do see on camera again, Rospo gets close, and in the end, he actually decides to bump draft Ryan Clark this time rather than go for a move. And I think that might be the better move here. And instead, just save the fuel and make the pit stop to make the jump. But Tom Wheeler leaving the pit lane very gradually, heading past all the pit stalls. And, well, he'll make his way into the pit lane hairpin, which sees him leave the pits. As he does so, well, merges all the way down in 11th place in club class. Steve G comes through, albeit he makes way into turn number 1. He'll be enough behind Wheeler that Wheeler won't have to worry about the GTRR driver, who's still keeping his head down here and looking to pick up some pieces and chase after a top 10. And we're always chasing top 10s there, trying to get some valuable points. He has picked up 1 or 2 so far this season, and he'd always develop in Steve G, and definitely an icon of a driver in the club class that is looking to continue to improve. But, oh, goodness me, Robin Powney there. Well, he's not going to want to have that happen. He's going to improve on that. Goes very sideways there, and almost ollieing his way off of the exit curb of the first part of the bus stop chicane. And the worst racing team ever drive. Definitely have the worst moment of this race ever as he gets it back together. But suddenly, Matt Bacon is going to find Martin Kenyon behind him, and also Dean Collins. They're all squeezed away past each other now. And he's going to blast his way past teammate Steve Hobbs there and get onto the toe of Jim Fox as quickly as possible. As Martin Kenyon here in his Acura, spot the wolf amongst the sheep as he comes into the braking zone, goes right for the middle of Wes Collins and also Hobbs. And Martin Kenyon, how about that Exorcist for a Simcoe's driver? And well, we know how deft he is in this car in the wet, albeit sadly at the Hockenheim ring, it didn't quite work out for what could have been a huge performance. But the Exorcist with Simcoe's driver showed he's not afraid to use the brakes of that Acura like nobody else. And well, does manage to move on to 5th place in the interclass there, and now chase after Matt Bacon once again. Keep your eyes out for Kenyon. He's targeted the top 5 here today, and I think he wants to be the one who beats all of the worst racing team ever cars, albeit I think chasing down the top 3 of Wheeler, Brooks and Wireborn. It's just going to be a bit of a tough ask. We'll have to wait and see what is going to come and whether he can achieve perhaps the impossible task. As he makes his way on around, well, we've got some more pit stops, including Luke Sherlock and Robin Power into the pits. Power comes in, and I think that has been forced on him by the error or the incident he's had. Luke Sherlock will come out ahead of him. There is Sherlock, there is Power, and right now the worst racing team ever drives. Got to really get himself back in the game with this one because it's all gone a bit too wrong. Now, intriguingly, what we should point out is that whilst Power and Sherlock have had pit stops of 18 seconds and 21 seconds, Tom Wheeler is just behind them, 27-second pit stop. I get the feeling, because of the stationary time, he's changed the tyres on that car, and it would be most likely just one tyre that's been changed. I wonder whether that front left does need to be changed on that Ford Mustang. I wonder if he's been hurting through the hairpins and therefore he's just needed an improvement to front end grip there to help him rotate. It will cost you 7 seconds because it's 2 seconds to get the car up on the jacks and approximately 5 to get the pit crew over the wall and then to understand how you make the tyre change. But I wonder if Wheeler's gambled on one tyre just to help him out. Oh, the turn is you just put a lot more fuel in the car, although I think that would be a bit excessive if so. I have to see as Martin Kenyon still battling here with Dean Collins. Meanwhile, Ashley Brooks has come in from the lead of the Interclass, and Kenyon going not from the lead, from the top three, I should say, the Interclass, because Jack Whitewood is the leader, and Martin Keane defending versus Collins, but this enabled Bacon to break away. And, well, right now, Steve Hobbs, Stephen Parker Hamilton, in fact, hold the phone. Jim Fox into the pit lane. So, we've got a new club leader in the form of Stephen Parker Hamilton. Fox is in, however. Car being serviced at the moment. Ashley Brooks has been in. He's only taken fuel with the pit lane. And I suspect we'll see the same for Jim Fox shortly. Yes, he's just leaving the pits now after a 21-second stationary stop. But Stephen Parker Hamilton has a chance here to return to the top. Albeit the MRC Endurance Team driver, you would be forgiven for mistaking it as a worst racing team ever car, given they have similar colour textures on the cars, albeit the way to tell an MRC car is the fact that the base colour underneath the green stripage is a much darker grey to black compared to the lighter grey of the worst racing team ever cars. And Stephen Parker Hamilton carries on right now with Jordan Maymar for company, but the fact that Fox has pitted already, it'll be interesting to see how they all come out together. But with that, we need to take a bit of a brief breather and take a look at what exactly happened to Robin Pownyer. And here we go then. So Pownyer at the time was side-by-side with Fox, made his way into the bus stop chicane. They went too wide through. Oh, a bit of contact there. That looked like netcode initially. That turned into side-by-side contact. And in the end, Robin Pownyer going all the way round. Can we get on board with Jim Fox for that one? I think we can. This is what it looked like from Fox's perspective as we do try to get our replay. And well, I think it has had a bit of a glitch. Here we go. There it is. And this was Fox making his way on through. It was always going to be tight there, but I think he did try and allow for the space. I think in the end, it was netcode into side-by-side contact. It's going to be a tough one there for the Shoes to pick apart because normally it's black and white. It's very binary in terms of what's their contact or not. When netcode gets involved, it gets just that little bit harder. But with that, we make our way back to your live racing. And as we do, 27 minutes still to go, plus a final lap. Plenty more stories to be told in this race, no doubt about it. I think we've had a bit of a moment for Darren Sharp, was in fact quite recently. Oh, that does not look good at all. Look at the front bumper of that car. If you look closely, for the old Dudes and Cars midlife crisis driver, he's definitely having a mid-race crisis right now as he makes his way through the hairpin. And that is not a healthy Porsche. Try to get a replay of that when we can and try to find out what exactly's gone wrong. In fact, saying that, I think we are getting an immediate feed to a replay. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what happens to Sharples. He'd only just pitted and was trying to chase Casper Brotner, but I think Brotner got away a little bit. Sharples made his way through, hit the curb quite high there as he made his way through the right-hander of the bus stop. Oh, and straight into the tyre barrier, and he's moved that tyre barrier as well. Thankfully, he hasn't moved it onto the road, but that's why he's got the big bump in the front of the car, and what it does look like the Porsche there has become a compact car instead as we head back to your live racing. Darren Sharp was too much curb and, well, definitely hurted himself for it as Mikey Stewart makes his way down pit road. And, well, of course, he had that instant early on that sent him for a spin. But now he's got to see if he can convert it into a win or at least try to make a bit of damage limitation out of this as Martin Kenyon comes down the pit road and so does Jordan Maymar. Interesting. So Maymar pits before Parker Hamilton. Where is Fox going to come out in all of this as well? Because right now we would imagine that Fox would be ahead of them strategy-wise. Parker Hamilton, well, the fact he's continued to go long here, is the overcut going to be the winning theme again today? Well, John Maymar still in the pits at the moment, still being searched. In fact, I say that, he's now just left his pit box. Where is Fox? We'll look to the blimp camera. Here is Jim Fox. That's a long way back there for Jim Fox. I don't think he's had the best pit stop as he makes way through because Jordan Maymar makes his way through the hairpin. This is going to be closer. I think Fox is going to lose out. I think so. It's going to roll for Fox and Maymar makes his way through. And as he does so, there's Jim Fox over to the left-hand side of the pitch, and they're practically going to be even here, and they make the way up towards the hairpin. And Fox moves back ahead of Jordan Maymar, but this is going to be a huge scare for Fox right now. He's going to be looking in his rearview mirror and thinking to himself, how on earth has the driver who was the best part of 6 seconds behind me suddenly caught up to me? And the answer is, well, it's not in the pit stop time. Jordan Maymar has gained 1.5 seconds end-to-end in the pits, but it's not that grandiose. The only other thing could be is that the reality, whilst Fox has been at the head of that pack of cars, i.e. the Inter and Pro cars that he was leading, particularly the worst racing team ever machines, actually, because he's not had a draft really to work with, he's lost out a lot of time, and it has enabled Maymar, and also, well, now the big question is, Parker Hamilton, could he be coming out ahead or even as well? It's enabled them to really close the gap under the radar. Ryan Clark and Gianluca Rospo, they've yet to pit, but they fight now, currently for 5th and 6th in the club class, effectively, we believe, 11th place when we do see them fit back into the strategic picture. But they're still getting ready to have a bit of fun out there, as meanwhile, we have had the battle for 4th place between Schumacher and Adam Watson. Well, it's fallen away a little bit for Harvey Wheeler, but there they are. But Schumacher is back ahead of Watson, so they continue to swap back and forth. But right now, both drivers here, I think one going to get closer to Wheeler, but finding that Wheeler is gradually absconding. As they come closer to the end of their fuel tanks, more pit stops are inbound, including Hobbs, Barker, Hunter and Connolly. There is Matthew Hunter with James Connie right behind him. Currently 3rd and 4th in club, but remember they will swap things around. So where do they come back out is the big question. As here's Jim Fox surely make his way past them. He will do so. Well, we still got to we expect the pit stops of Stephen Park Hamilton and Tobias Hutchinson and Ryan Clark and Gianluca Rospo in the club class. Although saying that, Rospo still chasing after Ryan Clark as much as possible. And we're very eager to see if he can steal that place away. But again, we believe his McLaren is more set up for the corners here rather than the straightaways. But then we come back to Jim Fox behind Martin Kenyon. Not the best driver to perhaps come out behind, not because Martin Kenyon is slow, it's because he's behind an Acura that definitely doesn't have straight line speed compared to some of its peers. Although Kenyon will have got that car set up to try and gain as much speed as he possibly can. It's going to be a bit of a tough one there. But at the front of the field, into the pits, Philip Hammer, Hayden Young, Harvey Wheeler, and also Michael Schütze back and Timo Gertner. One driver going an extra lap, Adam Watson. So Watson shows his true plans here, which is to go the longest of everybody, and Hammer has already made his way. In fact, I think Philip Hammer has just missed his pit stall because he has come in, and literally as quickly as he's come in, it does say he's now leaving the pits. Well, in fact, he's not. He is being serviced, but I think he's made the mistake of missing his pit stall, and, well, he is being serviced there, but it's a glitch on our timing tower. Adam Watson heads on around here, so could that cost Hammer some valuable time? Could it see Hayden Young get a bit closer to him in the reality of things? We'll have to find out. But as Hammer leaves the pit lane, there's Steve G, who's going to come out alongside him. Where's Hayden Young? He's coming out as well. And Hayden Young right now a lot further back than he previously was. In fact, that gap to Philip Hammer, that is now 6 seconds here. It has grown, and it has grown quite so. And, well, Michael Schütze has come out ahead of Harvey Wheeler. So that's a twist we did expect, but I think that might be when Schütze has saved a lot more fuel. In fact, the statistics in the pit lane tell the story. A 2-second quicker stop for Schütze compared to Wheeler. End-to-end of the pit lane, 2 seconds gained. And Harvey Wheeler, therefore, I think was going all in. And meanwhile, Schütze now is into effective, as we understand it, 3rd place in the Pro class. Unless Adam Watson, of course, can strategically put himself ahead of the pair of them or put himself amongst them. We will see what it's to be. And indeed, he could be among them very soon. As we do come back to what's happening elsewhere, Graham Vivers carries on through, and as he does so, there's Martin Kenyon behind him, but just up the road from them, your eyes do not deceive you, that is Stephen Parker Hamilton. So he's pitted on lap number 21, and we're 19.4 second stop compared to Fox's 20.77 and Maymar's at 20.35 second stops. Stephen Parker Hamilton is now your club leader, so could he finally be taking that win that has escaped him so many times this season? The 399 driver here has definitely set himself up strategically to do so, and well, he has swapped that around by the best part of 3 seconds over the course of the opening stint into the pit stop. And Jim Fox ahead of Jordan Maymar, who he's actually dropped quite significantly. I think Maymar's had a mistake somewhere because Maymar has really dropped. And, well, in fact, that last lap, he was 1.5 seconds slower. So a mistake of some description. And that has seen Fox make the jump up ahead of him. But Stephen Parker Hamilton has been the biggest jumper of the ball in the club class lead battle. But Adam Watson into the pits, leaving the pit lane already. Philip Hammer's gone past. There's Hayden Young coming into the opening corner. And Jack Wyborn's in as well for the lead of the Interclass. We'll keep an eye on that. But I think Adam Watson is going to come out in 2nd place here. So Watson has magically magically and massively made this worked out. He's jumped ahead of Hayden Young, who was, let's keep this in mind here, he was 3 seconds ahead before the pit stops, and now Watson has moved the best part of a second ahead of him, although he's caught the back of Steve G here, which isn't ideal. And coming in towards the kink here, Steve G doing what he should do, which is just hold your race line, let the lead lap driver overtake you, just don't change your race line. He does exactly that, and Adam Watson there squeezed on through, and Hayden Young comes through with him. So not ideal for Watson. He has seen Young given a lifeline here to attack for a second, but Watson here has definitely found his way well ahead of Shitsukedo and Wheeler, and I get the feeling right now these two are going to be asking themselves after the race, how on earth has Watson managed to take 5 seconds over the both of us, and it's all been through the pit stop and fuel saving. A monster bit of strategy there for Watson, and well, now can he close down Philip Hammer all the way to the end, or is it going to be a 6th win in the row for Hammer, and will Watson being denied his opportunity to take his first win of the season? Well, we haven't got long to find out, 20 minutes still to go. But meanwhile, we come back to Timo Gertner, who you would think right now he was in a much longer car, but no, he's just pushing Jack Wyborn along, and the interleader back to where he was, and well, 2.5 seconds behind him is Ashley Brooks, so you can see here, and Brooks right now, he's got to get a move on to try and take that lead back from Wyborn. He's got to try and close that gap up. It is 2.7 seconds as they make their way onto the turn 12 oval banking, but Brooks right now, if he can huff and puff enough, he may still have a chance here. We'll have to see what it's going to be. A bit further down the order, we come back to Tobias Håkansson, and credit where it's due to that excellent slow driver, and the team in general have not had a happy mid-season. They've really had a big slump in form compared to the expectations at the start of the season, but right now the excellent slow driver behind Krista Bates, and when he started 8th in class, he's still running 8th in class. This is a much better day for him today, as he continues to follow. He may have a chance at 7th place here, but all is said and done, and let's show you those class positions. We haven't shown you those all at broadcast today. We've only really talked about them because how close all the slipstream has been. And well, all these drivers right now have served their pit stops. Nathan Anst is still in the pit lane. He's going with the world's longest Daytona pit stop, currently spanning 26.5 minutes. That's because he's retired the car, but sitting in the pit lane there. And we should give a big shout out to Nathan Anst, because the reason he's sitting in the pit lane is to capture the replay footage. So that way, if anybody does need to report any incidents, but also for us to be able to do this post-round broadcast, we do have that replay. Although we do also have to give a shout out. Oh, well, forget about that for a moment, because Jim Fox into the grass. And that's coming out of turns 2 and 3. I don't believe it. The man who we sung the praise of at the start of today's race, given the fact he really was turning a new leaf, well, unfortunately he's turned back to the older leaf there, as around the outside goes Adam Lynch, and that is literally kind of fine. The margin's a margin on that one, Adam, and well, Jim Fox drops to 4th place in the club class just like that. And what exactly has happened to the Pride Tier for Oak Hill race? It was on course for an absolutely brilliant podium, if not the win, and now the podium has escaped him. Well, here we go for a quick trip back in time. Let's find out the story for Jim Fox. So this was Fox battling at the time with Graham Beavers and also Martin Kenyon on the outside to the inside of 2. Oh, goodness me, it did take a lot of curb, but he tried to then narrow the road into 3. Martin Kenyon was there. Can we get an alternative angle of that one? That definitely looks a little bit claustrophobic between the two of them. We could get a distant camera angle. That's not going to be helpful. Here we go. Here's a better one. Oh, goodness me. And I think what's happened there is where Fox has gone over the turn 2 curb, the fact that he was able to straight line it and not lose the rear of the car, I think what he's then had to do to keep the car stable is point the steering wheel straight. And unfortunately, Martin Kenyon was alongside him at the time, even partially. And Kenyon, I don't think's realised he needs to back out, if he should back out, to be fair. Let's be clear about that. And in the end, the two have come together and they've tangoed. And unfortunately, Jim Fox has made his way to the grass. A bit of a moment there, but understandably, I think a small mistake from Fox. It's just added up into that contact, and well, I think the stewards may take a look at that one. It would be interesting to see what they've got to say about it. But with that, let's come back to your live racing. And as we do, there's still more to come between all these drivers, no doubt about it. As we do look back to your overall standings, as they carry on, well, what's next in the story? Well, Adam Watson is still 17.5 minutes on the clock. He has Hayden Young now for close company. So I think these two, unless they can work some magic to close down Philip Hammer, I think it's going to be locking horns here for the runner-up spot on the pro podium. Hayden Young, of course, with his opportunity to taste his first pro podium of the season. Conversely, Adam Watson would like a return to it. He would like that second place, but Young looks around the outside, trying to go for that move nice and early, albeit it doesn't quite work out initially there, and tucks back in behind again. As he tries to carry on. Harvey Wheeler as well, with Michael Schütze-Kehrder back for company, and the two absolutely battling back and forth, but Wheeler finding that Schütze-Kehrder back is no easy pickings. As they roll the way on through, Tim Probert and Daniel Cavaggio, a bit of a coming together here. The two having a bit of a fun scrap, And right now, Kovac going as defensive as possible. And well, Tim Pruitt goes the switch back. A small tap between the two of them. And Tim finds a space there, but that's a space that I think he could fit his pinky toe into. He couldn't quite fit the whole car into. And Max Wheeler's going to cut behind this right now and think, okay, what are they doing? They seem to be playing silly business. And will we jump aboard with the Averso fast driver? As he breaks his way in towards the second of the hairpins. I think there Daniel Kovac was expected to perhaps go a bit wider than Tim anticipated. And, well, understandably, both drivers there settling things back down. As Max Wheeler right now continue to follow closely for Averso Fast. Remember, for him in his Audi right now, third in the Interclass. The two drivers in front of him are both Pro Class drivers, and he doesn't really need to worry about beating them so long as he doesn't lose time to his main concern, which will be Dean Collins behind him. Dean Collins is 13 seconds adrift. And I think with the fact he's got 6.5 seconds to Ashley Brooks, his thought process may be here, settle for third and continue to lead the championship, and he will hold quite a reasonable lead going into the showdown segment of the season. But a bit of a mad run there, and that was Tim Pruitt taking all the curb and plenty more. Daniel Kovac a very tight X out the corner. Both of them taking very different lines there, but both ended up with the same outcome, which is they stay as they were. But meanwhile, Hayden Young here looking to go around the outside for second in Pro overall. Tries to make the move there to turn one, doesn't quite work out. Meanwhile, Michael Schütze-Kerouac defending on the inside this time, and Harvey Wheeler getting his fangs out here. But surely these two have got to be thinking if they work together, they'll close up to that fight for second and third, or perhaps they're not seeing it right now. Perhaps the proverbial red mist is descending a little bit. It's just blinded them to the fact there could be a much bigger prize up on offer. Meanwhile, Mikey Short and Jeffrey Damon, well, they've got the honours of fighting for 10th place in Pro. As the car makes way out of the pit lane, that's Ben Knowles who's going to come out a lap behind for 5M Racing. But Jeffrey Damon tucks back in by Mikey Stewart. Mikey making that move stick just for now. Of course, a bit of a recovery drive at the moment, seeing what he can salvage out of this race. Other fights out there. Gianluca Rospo and Ryan Clark. They were like this before they came into the pits. They're like it when they come out of the pit lane. Rospo still trying to find a way to outsmart his way past Ryan Clark because he hasn't got the speed to beat the BMW, but he's got the corner speeds that he can use to get close. And well, heading on at the moment, Rospo really dependent on the tyre of that BMW to have any chance of making a move happen. Tom Cordy as well, fighting there with Darren Sharples as Jack Barker tries to run away. Snigger in with 11th place in Inter at the moment. And well, Tom Cordy comes on through. And I think he has just made a move on Darren Sharples there, although he has to be brave to do it, as Gianluca Rospo still looking for that move there on Ryan Clark, trying to go around the outside. But again, you can see as soon as he comes out that toe, that McLaren just loses all the speed it's gained. And suddenly, Rospo just does not have the ability on the brakes there to beat Clark. Not because the McLaren can't do it, not because the driver can't do it, but because Ryan Clark is equal. But here we go. In towards the hairpin, and I think that's what Rospo's got to do here. He's going to have to be really forceful at one of these hairpins, make a side-by-side move happen, and then potentially get the move done into turn number 7. If he can do that, he's then just got to be very defensive into the bus stop chicane. He might have a chance, but it's going to be so tough here for the Italian driver because, of course, there's so many sections of lap where he's on full throttle, and that's where he's going to be exposed, particularly with that BMW. If he gets a draft, it's going to power past by the best part of 5 miles an hour. But going on up towards what we turn number 7 here, Rospo still having to wait a little bit longer. But going back up to Martin Kenyon, the man who sits in 8th for the Interclass with Robin Paradier trying to look for a way through. Well, Paradier right now going high as they go onto the backstretch. In fact, not onto the backstretch. So this is the start-finish straight. Let me correct myself as we take a sip of water. And Paradier trying to go around the outside here. And Kenyon will defend as best as possible. But the Englishman may lose out. No, he's not going to give up. They do touch a little bit. Paradier made to go wide. And then suddenly Jordan Maymar says, can I join the party? Indeed, right now, I think Jordan Maymar literally coming out of left field there. And I thought he was going to clip the rear of them with the speed he came in. But no, such is the confidence he has on the brakes as Kenyon goes a bit deep into the horseshoe. And suddenly Paradier does squeeze his way through. And now I think Kenyon's going to have the pressure of Maymar. And for Jordan Maymar, well, the thought process here is going to be, does he settle for second with a 4-second gap to Stephen Parker Hamilton? Lap time-wise, he is quicker than Parker Hamilton, but he has benefited from the toe of the two Inter drivers in front. But I think he'll want them to settle down. He may have a chance to close up, if so, with 12 minutes to go. Also, look in the rear of the picture, you can just see the demonic headlights there of not Stephen Parker Hamilton, Tom Wheeler's Ford Mustang, the 7th generation Mustang making its way through. And the Averso rapid driver right now will be looking at what's going on in front of him, seeing his relative and thinking, surely, if Paddy and Kenyon fight, I may have a chance of second place here. So it can all turn tables just yet. To see if that's the way it is going to go. As meanwhile, Back on the start-finish straight. Well, this time, Hayden Young on the inside of Adam Watson for second place. Over on Pro. Onto the brakes they go. So what's Watson going to do to counteract this? The answer is going to be switchback as he makes his way out of that corner. 2-1 they go in towards the S. And as they make the way from right into left here, brilliant respect shown between these two. But look what it's doing. As they head in towards the hairpin, it is brilliant. Shinsuke back and Harvey Wheeler right into the mix. They're 1.2 seconds behind. Oh, goodness me. We've got a four-way fight going here for the final two podium spots over in Pro today. This is definitely going to be exciting here right now for Adam Watson. Well, I'll tell you one thing, I know he loves leading races, but he also loves a good scrap, and Hayden Young is giving him one there as Watson has to open up the steering wheel, but they both go deep, and as they do, Hayden Young gives the place up to Adam Watson there, outbroke himself at the bump in the road, and as a result, gives the place back and push Watson wide, but Shinsuke back and Wheeler now right in the mix of this, as they come on towards what will be the run of the oval banking. We ride on board here with the third of the four drivers in the group. It's Shinsuke back here for pole promotion with ASR. As he powers his way onwards here, where it's going to be the battle of McLaren, 2 Porsches and a Ferrari. And well, right now, 3 different machines, 3 different manufacturers, all their own strengths and weaknesses, 4 different drivers, all their own talents out there as well. And Philip Hammer, he may have disappeared 7.6 seconds up the road to go on to this victory right now. But I think for these drivers, this is going to feel like a huge prize in its own right. As they weave the way through the chicane, and Watson gets it wrong, he stops the car, and Shinsuke looks at the move, he gets elbowed slightly low, but Shinsuke says to him, I'm going for it. And as they come on through right now, Watson gets wrong. Oh, big twitch as Watson gets tapped there on the rear quarter panel, trying to come down, but Hayden Young's there, and Harvey Wheeler squeezes on through as well. And in the end, they all survive it somehow, some way. They're all still going. But as we look back from the rear of the leader of the quartet right now, will Shinsuke has an opportunity here to take a third 1-2 alongside his teammate of Hammer. But here comes Harvey Wheeler on through. Wheeler wants it just as much. Hayden Young's back on the inside as well. 10 minutes to go. Watson goes deep, squeezes his way, goes for another cut back. Another big twitch to the rear of that McLaren, and that car right now all on their original tyres as well, where suddenly we find that rear grip levels are not going to be as formidable as they once were. But Harvey Wheeler here, can he find a way to act as the Pied Piper? Can he lead them, or can he orchestrate the run of this? Can he get them all to fight for third and leave them alone for second place? Because he's moved ahead there, and right now seems to be picking the right places to back the car off versus when to go for attack. But as they break their way down to the hairpin, Hayden Young comes in a bit too deep onto the brakes, and the Porsche tries so much more confident in the brakes there. Taps Wheeler, realises that Harvey Wheeler brakes earlier. Well, the best part of around about 5 metres, and well, concertina effect abiding, of course, but Hayden Young's got to store that little bit of information. He's got to take that nugget. It could be a very tasty one next time they go into a heavy braking zone. And as they make the way around, meanwhile, we have Matt Bacon battling with Luke Sherlock here for 5th place in the Interclass. And how about this? Luke Sherlock going all the way from 11th place in the starting order down in 29th, now fighting for 17th overall, and indeed fighting for a top 5 here in the class, where maybe a new logo, or alternatively, it's just the fact that lovely livery of the car, and he's enjoyed Daytona. But either way, this is a very formidable run here from Luke Sherlock. You can't blame him for it. He's going for it. Graham Vivas is behind, however, and that's going to be a fault in his mind that Vivas may have an opportunity to get a little bit more entwined in this right towards the very end. And Martin Kenyon is only 4 seconds adrift, albeit Stephen Park Hamilton there swaps places with Vivas. So the club leader right now saying to Vivas, well, hold the phone for yourself. I've got places to be, and so have you. But meanwhile, as we come back to inter-leader, Jack Wyborn, where he's comfortably ahead of the rest of the field, albeit I say that, the reality is he's not comfortably ahead anymore, because he's only 1.1 seconds ahead of Ashley Brooks. Brooks 8 minutes to go here. Could Brooks spring a surprise? That last lap, he was a whole second quicker than Wyborn. Keep this up, he will be in attacking distance very soon, because Timo Gertner, and the problem is that the Wildfire Motorsport driver here is causing Wyborn to go backwards towards Boyd, and Gertner's got no toe to work with, naturally, but also he seems to be struggling a little bit for pace this late on in the race. Although saying that, his opening sector on that previous lap was a personal best. It's the latter half of lap where he's losing the time by comparison. As he tries to make the way on around right now, well, still plenty more to come here. It's not over yet at Daytona, and as we always say, the thing about Daytona is it starts off slow. It always builds up, however, and it's those final laps, particularly the very last lap, where you see the madness unfold, where everyone's been building up to it, and indeed, it really is. Everyone's been so patient, and it all erupts right now. These are races where it does come down to patience and also knowing when not to miss your opportunities. Speaking of which, Jordan Maybar right now still trying to make sure that he latches onto the back of Martin Kenyon, as Tom Wheeler and Adam Lynch are swap places around there. And indeed, it's right now the 2 club drivers competing for the final spot of the club podium, who are both trying to use the inter-drivers around them to make some headway and progress. A difficult situation for them. Going back to Ryan Abbott's, we haven't really talked about him. Well, he's found a fellow Aston Martin out there. And indeed, if you look behind him by 6 seconds, you also see Matthew Hunter, but he's found the Aston Martin of Jack Barker. A more friendly one, perhaps, because Abbott's 5th place in the club class right now doesn't want Matthew Hunter getting any closer, because he's also a club driver in 6th, and he'd like that top 5 off him if he can. But as the Simcast Racing Team driver carries on, to be fair to Mr. Hunter, he's done very well today, going from 10th to 6th. He's picked up some places at the expense of others making mistakes, including Bates and Conley, who are trying to chase him, but also he's not really put a foot wrong. But with our analysis of further down the field, we do need to look further up the field. As Harvey Wheeler right now keeping Adam Watson, Michael Schutzer-Kedbach and Hayden Young at bay, and Young has really slipped behind this group recently. So Hayden Young now 1.5 seconds back. It's a Zenit Racing driver perhaps thinking about just cooling things down a little bit, because he's definitely slipped to the back of the group, and that last lap he was 2 seconds slower. I wonder if he's picked up a slowdown penalty, although he was at the back of the group on the start of that lap, so he's not been overtaken. But either way, the Zenit Racing driver's made an error. Well, right now, is that an error that's going to take him out of the fight for 2nd or 3rd on the pro podium? As Harvey Wheeler still has the unenviable task of trying to keep Adam Watson and Michael Schutzer-Kedbach behind him for at least this lap, plus another. We're given our leader, Philip Hammer, is almost to the bus-stop chicane already. You would imagine at least another 3 laps after. We'll have to see it paved before. Jeffrey Damon versus Mikey Stewart, and Mikey Stewart goes very deep there at the second of the hairpins. So Jeffrey Damon retakes 10th place in the pro class, but for how long is he going to hold on to it, as these two continue to be swapping things back and forth as if they're swapping shares on the stock market floor? But right now it's not going to be Dow Jones, it's going to be Damon and Stewart instead as they make their way on through. Well, Stewart staying close, but as we ride aboard here, the Ferrari driver acts as what sim coach. Definitely has been an up and down race day, making a lot of progress early on, only to see it all regress, and right now just trying to claim a top 10 in pro, pick up some valuable points, but it definitely will not be a full 3rd place in a row today by looks of things. So he'll be breaking the nickname of Mr. 3rd place, but it won't be because he had a better result, it will be because he's had a worse result. As Damon there takes all the curb, car gets unsettled, has to collect it back together. That's a great thing, however, about running on oval. You have plenty of whip to be able to catch a car that's slightly loose. But definitely something that Stewart will take into mind is the fact that he might be able to pressure Damon into a further mistake. Further behind, we do have the fight for 4th in the interclass, still raging on. Bacon, Sherlock and Collins all together, although Dean Collins a bit further back, 3 tenths behind, as they make their way on down. And as they do, we ride aboard here, the 242 of Collins. Right now, watch it as it's going to be Sherlock looking for a potential move around the outside here. Onto the brakes they go, and well, can Sherlock get it done? Bacon goes a little bit wide, a small tap there, and indeed an innocent touch. That's a racing incident as far as they're both concerned, and as they make the way through, Bacon there just getting his elbows just a tiny bit wide, I think through braking on a tighter line, and Dean Collins look at this right now and thinking, are they going to get it all wrong? Of course, he won't want Bacon to get it wrong because it is his teammate. They'll want to finish 4th and 5th with Bacon. He'll want Sherlock 6th behind them if they can to get the best possible points reward out of this for both drivers and their championships, and also the team championship campaign respectively for the worst racing team ever outfits. But right now Luke Sherlock just proving to be a bit of a forward in the side of them both as they're coming out. But as we say, it's one of the finest drivers of Luke Sherlock this season, coming all the way through from outside the top 10 into a fight for a top 5. In fact, could be a 4th place position here right at the very end. Sadly, it's not worked out for Robin Powdier, who has recently towed to the pits. And I think we're not going to be able to get a replay of that until the very end now, if at all, but we're going to stay transfixed to all the battling the right at the end here. This is definitely build up to a proverbial crescendo. And still, to give you the Clark Rospo update, they're still fighting over what is 10th place in club class now. Given it has got a bit wrong for Jordan Butler, who's recently had to make a 2nd pit stop. He had to make one a bit earlier on, in fact. So right now, fighting over 10th, but Ryan Clark still holding on here. And right now, Rospo throwing everything at the city can. But I think this is an exercise of what is patience. And well, he's going to look for the movie on the outside. It's not going to work, but it may get Clark to outbrake himself. Does he get it to work? The answer is no. Oh, hold up a second. Miller Boyd's gone for a spin there, and that's dropped him a long way down. And in fact, that, combined with the fact that now Ashley Brooks is clear of Boyd, means that Ashley Brooks now has a clear run on Jack Wireboard if he can capitalise on it. It's a 2nd gap, however. That's the only problem he has. That is too big of a gap potentially to close down, as we've also had some trial for Jeffrey Damon, who's also gone for a spin. So what's going wrong at turn 1 for everyone? Miller Boyd's gone round, and also Jeffrey Damon. 2 Ferrari drivers both get it wrong, and I suspect they're both very similar mistakes. Here we go then for a quick replay to explain. So Miller Boyd to make his way onwards, and as he did so, looks around the outside here of the McLaren. And that was your 251 drive, that tiny touch and just unset. In fact, the 291 of Jack Wyborn, I think, and Miller Boy tried to go around that tiny tap, just unsettling his Ferrari and, well, helping it go on its journey. I don't think they're saying the touch was the cause of the spin, but I think it has just aided Boyd's car there, given the fact all the weight would have transitioned onto the rear right of the axle, and then suddenly the Syndic racing car can only grip up so much on worn tyres. Jeffrey Damon subsequently having his own incident here. This was battling with Mikey Stewart for 10th place in Pro. Bit twitchy on entry there and had lost the rear of the car already. And Mikey Stewart, my goodness, how on earth did he avoid getting caught up in that? Can we get on board of that? And this was Mikey's on board there, dashboard camera. He's going to find he's going to be in the 2 wide here, and he's not going to see too much other than the fact he will get a slight bump. Then there's the Friday that goes speed in front of him. There was some contact to the front right bumper, but to be fair, I think it was a graze, no more than that. Mikey Stewart, how about that? Some brilliant, decisive driving. And let's make our way back to your live pictures with 2 minutes to go. And as we do, what this means now is that Jeffrey Damon could be a lifeline here to Matt Bacon, because he's now gifting the toe there to the 4th place into driver. And Luke Sherlock and Deep Collins, we think to themselves, well, this was unexpected. And meanwhile, we do look to Tom Wheeler, who's still following Adam Lynch, with a 3-second gap to Jim Fox in the rear of the picture, who is slowly closing up. And what's happening in the fight for 2nd place in Pro? And overall, well, the answer is with 1 lap to go after the one they're currently on, we'll get 34 laps here today with Philip Hammer just about across the timing line. He is 8 seconds up the road. Harvey Wheeler still ahead of Adam Watson, and Michael Schütze about being made to wait in 4th place, and what was a sudden opportunity to make it a 3rd 1-2 for pole position with ASR this season. Well, to be fair to Schütze, a 4th place will massively help the team out, but it will leave him exposed there in the battle for 2nd place in the championship, but it will then again still see him right in the hunt for the top 3 right towards the end of the season, with the showdown rounds worth 50% more points. But hold the phone on that, because here comes Adam Watson up the inside versus Harvey Wheeler, and gets that done there to get his elbows out to do it. But understandably, I think Harvey Wheeler think, okay, that's the game we're playing, allow me to retaliate. Although he's not going to make that work into the hairpin on this final lap so far, but Adam Watson there making a very smart move on the inside there. Let the car roll deep, gave Wheeler enough space to exist through the corner and not feel forced off the road, but at the same time as well, definitely made sure his elbows were wide. Meanwhile, Luke Sherlock, he's been able to draft his way past Matt Bacon. Now can he draft his way high around the outside of Jeffrey Damon, who goes higher. Luke Sherlock's not going to be happy about this. If you think, why is he going high? Oh, and in the end, he's going to try and go around the outside. You can see that Bacon and Collins both trying to use all the road they're allowed to get the slingshot off the corner. Sherlock is still fighting here, but this is fighting to gain overall position to keep himself safe in 4th in class, as Bacon's going to go one side of him. Meanwhile, Collins is going to go the other. Bacon's all in on the inside, a bit of a touch between the 2 of them, but it's going to be Bacon who is up in the 4th place there. Did do it with 2 wheels on the road, so it will be just about within track limits, although Luke Sherlock, I don't think we'll see it that way initially. Dean Collins looking for the move as well. He can't quite find his way through, but battles are on. Meanwhile, we come back to Watson versus Wheeler, and this is coming down to the bus stop chicane, and Harvey Wheeler squeezes back ahead of Schütze goes on the inside. There's a touch, and Schütze backs off immediately there, and all feels like the door was shut in, but Adam Watson will say there was enough space, and it's contact between the 2. Watson goes spinning on around, but Watson already lost it, I'm not sure. But meanwhile, we have to look to this man, ladies and gentlemen. It's all happening right at the end, but for Philip Hammer, whilst there's drama behind, not so for the man who goes on to take his 6th win of the season here in style for pole position with ASR at Daytona, and behind him to come home in 2nd place overall in Pro. Is it Harvey Wheeler? Yes, it is. Hayden Young is going to come through with shoots and back into the pit lane. So Hayden Young is in the end going to be promoted to 3rd place, with Adam Watson coming through to 4th, I do believe. No, he won't, because Timo Gertner gets promoted up to 4th. Jack Wyborn comes home. Is your inter-winner of Ashley Brooks right with him at the line. We're going to get a replay of that. And then Max Wheeler finishes in 12th place as classified. In fact, 10th now. He'll be 3rd in the Ints class. They continue this championship lead. But what about Bacon? What about Sherlock? What about Collins? Here they come towards the timing line, and who's going to win it? I think it is going to be Matt Bacon, as he is side drafted along by Jeffrey Damon, and Bacon holds on. Does he? Yes, he does. For 4th in the interclass. Sherlock takes 5th. Collins in 6th in the class, down to 16th place there. And Stephen Parker Hamilton, as quickly as he parks up, he is your club winner. It's a maiden win for him in the club class. Head of Jordan Maymar, who finishes the best part of 5 seconds down the road. And Maymar there taking the runner-up spot in the club class, with Tom Wheeler taking home 3rd. And well, after it was Wheeler who beat Maymar last time out at Le Mans, it's the other way today. But Wheeler's championship lead will still stand strong, as Jim Fox just misses out on the podium and misses out the chance of his club win and maiden club win, we should say, with 24th and 4th in the class. A few more tries to still see the finish line. Let's see them all home where we can. We've got some replays to grab you before we do get the race results, ladies and gents. When James Conley comes across the line there, 31st, 8th in club. Header Darren Sharp, who's had a dismal second stint, 12th in the interclass at the end. Tobias Hakansen at 9th. And who takes home 10th place in club? Is it Clark? Is it Rossbo? It's Ryan Clark who holds off Rossbo. But what a drive between these two for the entirety of the race. And really showing today that having a car set up for straight line speed was the theme. However, Gianluca Rossbo did everything he could at that McLaren. It's all about the corners. He shakes the car from side to side. I think was shaking his head in the car. And sometimes they say that a car can express the emotions of the driver, and definitely expressing them there as he comes on through. But what a fight between those two. They enjoy themselves as they do talk in what is headlight Morse code. But with that, breathe for a moment, and then suddenly, let's try and find out. Gianluca Rossbo there revs the guts out the car. Let's take a look back at what exactly happened right at the end there between firstly Harvey Wheeler and Adam Watson and company, because that definitely was an exciting end to their race. So this was going on to the final lap of the race, and Adam Watson looking for the move around the outside of Harvey Wheeler, but swapped to the inside at the last moment there. Sent the dummy in, a dummy that Nigel Mansell will be proud of, and got it to the inside then. Harvey Wheeler, interestingly, the more we look back at that, Watson had cleared Wheeler for about 90% of the car through the corner, so Wheeler had no right to the outside line in, and Watson nailed that. But of course, they then came through the hairpin, and things got a little bit rough after that, as they were giving it chase, as with Harvey Wheeler and also Schütze Kernerbach. Right on board here with your Porsche driver. So following closely here, but at this point he really is player number 3 in a 2-player match in the front. He's got to think to himself, okay, how do I find a way to steal the place off of both of them for second place? Well, not close enough there, coming out of the hairpin, and stay as close as he dared, coming in towards turn number 7. I think this was all part of getting a really good run through the corner. You can see on the braking there, the way he positioned the car. Coming off and up towards the banking. As he powered his way onwards, Watson staying higher there, interestingly, and Wheeler only starting to pick up the toe towards the end. So wondering when Watson's going to come down, perhaps. He didn't do so until they come off of the banking. But Watson, to be fair, going to be getting a bit twitchy there. Wheeler and Watson. So Harvey Wheeler blasts his way past, and Schütze Kernerbach comes blazing up the inside. And a tiny touch there by the looks of things. And as Watson comes through the corner, losing the rear of the car. And Schütze Kernerbach's got nowhere to go at that point. So we thought there was a mistake from Watson, or that the car at least come loose. Now, was that mistake or that instant triggered by the initial tap between the two of them? That's going to be the big question that will need to be analysed. But here's a replay of that. See, it was an exterior camera, and this was coming through. There was the contact, you could see it there, and then afterwards, where Watson had taken so much curb for the first part of the bus stop chicane, Schütze Kernerbach had no place to respond there, but both drivers have gone over the instant point limit, and they have both picked up black flags as a result of that instant, we believe, and that's why they've been demoted down the field even further so, as Adam Watson did get himself back together, but of course being passed there by a couple of drivers along the way. So we have a bit of an understanding of the story there, but now the next story we need is what exactly happened between Jack Wyborn and Ashley Brooks. Well, here's Jack Wyborn. Here's Ashley Brooks. They're making the way in this replay footage for the interlead down into the bus stop chicane. So Brooks was closing and closing rapidly so, and as they made the way through, in front of them was Timo Gertner. So I think Jack Wyborn at this point was trying to throw his anchor onto the back of Timo Gertner and saying, pull me along, Timo, I need this right now. But as Brooks made his way onwards, that was the car of Adam Watson there. Of course, going slowly because it's got to build up speed after its spin, coming through at the bus stop chicane, and Brooks getting closer and closer and closer, still having to get close to Timo Gertner, getting ready to celebrate coming across the line. And in the end, well, that's a bit cheeky for Jack Wyborn, waving the car at the rear and saying to him, you're not going to win, I am. And in the end, Ashley Brooks missing out by 1.5 tenths at the line, but Brooks pushed hard, and compared to Le Mans, this time just within arm's reach to win, but couldn't quite take it. What a story between them. And of course, we then did have the battle between Bacon, Sherlock and Collins for 4th place. We're going to catch this, and then we will be going to will be your race results subject to any insurance inquiries, ladies and gentlemen. We do appreciate here that we are extending the end of this race a little bit, but of course there's so many stories at the end. This one for Matthew Bacon. Well, Luke Sherlock was behind him, however, Sherlock, of course, wanted to try and come through when he could, but they barreled their way down towards the bus stop chicane. The only problem was he needed a bit of a draft. And the difficulty was in that Jeffrey Day was giving a nice tow to Matt Bacon. So as they made the way through, and the fireworks were going off there in celebration already of what was Philip Hammer having taken his victory. Well, here you can see Matt Bacon right now very grateful for this, in the fact he's been given a lot of top end speed. Luke Shaw, of course, getting the double draft to try and come through. And at this point, well, David only held the low line there as long as he could, but he actually came up a bit high there, coming off the banking. A bit of a surprise, but in the end, it made them too wide. And Bacon going high enough, and Luke Shaw just did not have enough grunt to try and make that move happen. And Dean Collins being a bit of spectator in that one, I think perhaps the car ran out a tiny bit of fuel towards the checkered flag. But with that, let's take a look back at the live pictures and with those race results, subject to any Stewart's inquiries. Indeed, as Gianluca Rospo celebrates having plenty of fun out there today, but we do take a look to the scenic view, and with it, those race results. And as we can see, after an absolutely fascinating 60 minutes of racing action here at the Daytona International Speedway's road course in the state of Florida from round 7 to 10 in the UKSimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship Season 19, hosted by SimRacing International, and the end of our standard format portion of the season before the Showdown stage, Philip Hammer, 6 out of 6 wins in a row in 7 rounds of pole promotion with ASR by 9.3 seconds ahead of Harvey Wheeler for a Verso Rapid, and the podium completed by Hayden Young for Send It Racing. A shock surprise podium there for Hayden Young, and he won't understand what's happened until after when they get out all the cars and speak in the debrief room. And Timo Gert there, 4th place in Worldwide Motorsport, in a race where it was quite a lonely race for him, although in the end he did found some good company in the form of Jack Wyburn for MRC Endurance Team, who has rounded up the top 5 overall and got to take the into win. And for Jack, well, it does count as none other than what will be, as we double check our statistics here, I do believe his maiden win of the season. In fact, no, his second win of the season. Let's correct ourselves there. His first win coming in round number 4. And indeed, it's his 3rd podium of the season, when non-finished last him out, but first a 3rd prior to that. But then just behind him, Ashley Brooks, that wait for a win, or at least another win, that comes and goes, and indeed it stays with him for a little bit longer for Access Sport with SimWorks, only a 10th behind at the line, but 6th overall, with Adam Watson 7th there for Simcast at Altitude 3M, and a bit of a controversial ending between himself and Michael Schutz the Kettlebell. Miller Boyd 8th for Send It Racing Bulls, a spin midway through the race, curbing his opportunity for top 5 today, but he did manage to hold off Daniel Kovac with the RX Esport, who had plenty of excitement and fun out there once again. Indeed, plenty of excitement coming from the Audi R8 of VersaFast Max Wheeler, who helped Kovac along for a good portion of the race, giving him plenty of bump drafting. And in the end, Max was able to settle for 3rd in his class in the top 10 overall, completing said top 10 there, not having the pace to change his class leaders. Mikey Stewart, best rest in 11th place there. The Access Sport Simcoach driver, an unfortunate error cost him a chance for top 5 today, but ahead of Steve Hobbs there. And then it was Jeffrey Damon just behind, with the Wild Ride Motorsport driver 2 seconds too far behind at the worst racing team ever, 44 of Steve Hobbs, to be able to make a difference right at the finish. But still, Damon helped Matt Bacon come home for 4th place in the Inns class there, gifted him a tow right at the end, with the worst racing team ever driver finding him and his teammate Dean Collins split there by Luke Sherlock. The private team really coming alive today with one of his season best drives. And then we did see in 17th place Stephen Parker Hamilton at long last finding his first club win of the season. Indeed, what an achievement there for Parker Hamilton. And he'll be over the moon with that, given the fact that he's had 2 pole positions so far this season, but he's had no success in converting them into victories. But here today, able to convert what was a top 3 start in the class into a win, and it was all through strategy and smarts. Graham Vivas, 18th there for Phoenix Racing, ahead of Martin Kenyon for Access with Sim Coach, with the Acura coming alive as the race went on. And Jordan Maymar, runner-up in the club class of Simcast with Altitude 3M, finishing off the top 20. Outside the top 20 in 21st place, we did see there Michael Schitzer-Kenneback demoted down there due to the post-race time penalty and coming into the pit lane for pole promotion for ASR, so it'll be interesting to see how that's addressed afterwards, with Adam Lynch there finishing 22nd, and Tom Wheeler only 3 tenths behind, but more importantly for him, 3rd place in the club class day, and limiting the damage that can be done by Jordan Maymar. The Aversa Rapid try then followed up by Jim Fox, who saw that opportunity of his first win of the season slide to the grass after misfortune through turns 2 and 3 and some contact with Martin Kenyon. His first win of weight goes on, and then we did see a bit further behind none other than what was the machinery there, I do believe, of where it was none other than Tom Cordy, head of Jack Barker, with Ryan Abbots, Tim Probert, Matthew Hunter and Christopher Bates completing your top 30. James Gotti 31st, ahead of Darren Sharples, with Tobias Huckunson enjoying a good revival form early on in the race, but an instant for the ex-con slow diver, curbing what could have been a chance for a potential top 5 in club today. And with Ryan Clark and Gianluca Rospo may have only been for 34th, but they had a great scrap for it, and Clark came out on top. Jordan Butler was the first to finish a lap down, 36th ahead of Cy Anthony, with Casper Brotner, Steve G and David Pilcher completing your top 40, and outside the top 40, 41st, it was Robin Pioneer 4 laps down, but classified as a finisher, and non-finishes, unfortunately, for none other than Ben Knowles, Daniel Page, Nathan Anstis, Hedrick Zilka, and Peter Cox. But then we come to the individual class finishing positions, because this is where the points are made and paid as always. And in Pro, the top tier of our class is Philip Hammer, 6 wins in a row. The pole position of ASR driver, kept honest early on by Hayden Young, but was able to storm away to victory in the end ahead of Harvey Wheeler, who surged his way through the field. And to finish, the runner-up, the Aversa Rapid driver, able to tame the pack behind him at the end, albeit the pack behind him at the end was completed by Hayden Young, the Sendit Racing driver, who was propelled to third after the late altercation between Adam Watson and Michael Schützer-Kedelbach. Timo Gertner finishing fourth there, promoted up to fourth for Wild Ride Motorsport, as Adam Watson had to settle for fifth in the other simcast for Altitude 3M, and then Miller Boyd sixth place there for Sendit Racing Bulls in a race that looked like it was going to be a top 5 until the late spin cost him the chance of it, and Daniel Kovac, seventh there for DRX Esports, was never too far behind. 11 seconds back behind it was Mikey Stewart there for Access Sport with Sim Coach, but able to steer clear of Steve Hobbs for worst racing team ever 44, and Jeffrey Damon completed the top 10 there for Wild Ride Motorsport, despite his misfortunes, will rotate to the top 10 thanks to a post-race time penalty that saw Michael Schützer-Kedelbach reduced to 11th place for pole promotion with ASR. Tim Probert, 12th there, and it was a lap down behind him for Old Dudes and Cars Amnesia's Casper Brotner, and we did see the sole retirement early on in the race for Team UKSimRacing Hills' Nathan Anstis. To the interclass we go. And here in the interclass, Jack Wyborn taking that victory by only 1.5 tenths of the line, but doing it in style for MRC Endurance Team, a second win of the season. And Ashley Brooks, he'll be sitting there thinking, if only I had about 100 more metres, I could have stolen away that win. But unfortunately, he had to deal with the 3.56 miles he was given each and every lap. Still for Brooks, is his second win of the season, a fourth podium as well. And this result will happily push him back into second place with Wesley Van Rens not on the grid today. And so the chase is on still behind Max Wheeler, because the Averso Fast driver was third today. Does mean that Brooks has gained some degree of ground, but nowhere near enough here to really level the playing field going into the showdown round. And so Max Wheeler will feel confident that with another podium, he is going to have an opportunity really now to be able to finish behind his rivals, close behind him in the showdown rounds, rather than think about finishing ahead of them if needed. But Matt Bacon, fourth there for worst racing team ever, enjoying that incredible three-way fight for fourth place between himself, Luke Sherlock, and teammate Dean Collins, and then Graham Vivas for Phoenix Racing at one point surging through the field, other points falling back down through the field, but taking 7th, a decent result for him. Martin Kenyon taking 8th there for Access Sport Sim Coach, getting the best out of the Acura as only he knew how, with Adam Lynch there in 9th place for Euro Tyson Endurance ahead of Tom Cordy, the Phoenix Racing driver, falling foul of an early instant and falling back to finish in 10th place. And Jack Barker, in a bit of a lonely race, made for racing after that early turn 4 contact on the open lap. He finished in 11th ahead of Darren Sharples, with it being a lap down to Cy Anthony, 4 laps down to Robin Pioneer, and then it was non-finishers classified for Hendrik Zilka and Peter Cox, both retiring on the open lap. In the club class, the last of our 3 classes, here we did see victory, a maiden win at long last at MRC Endurance Team Stephen Parker Hamilton, and today showing he had the pace on the road and the smarts in the pit lane to leap ahead of both Jordan Maymart and Tom Wheeler and Jim Fox. The trio behind him then, well, Jordan Maymart second today for Simcast for Altitude 3M, regaining some ground on Tom Wheeler, the championship leader, but Wheeler finishing third. It's damage limited, and indeed the Averso Rapid driver knowing that he holds a slender lead going into the showdown stage. For Jim Fox, that first win will have to wait, but the privateer once again showing huge promise today. He'll be upset with that fourth, particularly given the fact he should have been on the podium, but he's got to convince himself of the fact that it will come to him eventually. Ryan Abbott's may not have been the heroic Solomon, but still a 5th place there for the Team Nubis drive, going under the radar to a degree, and being the highest place of the Aston Martins in the club class, with Matthew Hunter finishing 8 seconds behind for Simcost Racing Team. Christopher Bates, despite the drama at the start, did recover to 7th place, ahead of his Team UKSimRacing teammate James Connolly, and then we did see Tobias Hansen in 9th place there for Hexagon Slow, head of Ryan Clark, the Spectre Racing SimWorks UK driver, just fend off Gianluca Rosbo for Deep Motorsport 2 line to complete the top 10. Rosberg's best of the rest, with Jordan Button there, a lap down for Spectre Racing SimWorks UK, head of Steve G, and also David Pilcher, and it was non-finishers of Ben Knowles and Daniel Pays. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our rundown of the results, and I do believe, whereas we would normally at this point bring you the updated standings after the round, we are just double-checking whether they are available, and the answer is, sadly, the updated standings are not, so therefore it does mean we won't be able to show you those today, but of course, don't fret, we'll show you the updated standings when we do have the commencement of our round 8 broadcast. We always bring up to speed with the standings going into each and every round. We just can't do it at the end of this one, but we'll try and give you a quick synopsis shortly as we do now get ready to wrap up. And thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now thinking about getting on the grid here at SimRacing International, well, the good news is we're an esports professional all the way through to a rookie driver. We would love to see you on the grid. There's a place for you here at SimRacing International, an all-inclusive community. And whilst we're based out in the United Kingdom, regardless of where you are around the globe, as long as you're willing to be on the grid amongst like-minded drivers and you're sensible about it, there's a place for you here. And you can join the community using the official Discord link at the bottom of your screen. It's as easy as that. Now, if you want to get on the grid, of course, we have plenty of GT3 racing action. You've been tuning into our Sunday Showdown, the UKSimRacing GT3 Championship that runs on Sunday evenings every week. But of course, if you're more inclined to watching and racing on Thursdays, or at least on a weekday, we do have our Thursday evening GT3 Championship in its 13th season, with 2 splits of A and B running on a weekly basis in its 13th instalment. But if you're more inclined to go towards older Grand Touring machinery, particularly the Grand Touring endurance cars, the GTEs of the late 2010s all the way through to the decommission of the class in 2023, we've got you covered there. For our 3rd season of the GT Championship is underway, and round number 2 is coming up this coming Friday, and that runs every 2 weeks, with the emphasis for this season being very much on endurance racing. But if you want to go all the way to the very top, perhaps you're looking to compete with some of the best out there on iRacing and looking to try and compete for some of the biggest honours that you can have on a sim racing grid, well, why not join the grid on our Motorsport UK Esports approved championship, the SimRacing International Transatlantic Trophy Season 1, our biggest prize pool ever, racing on Wednesday evenings in GT3 and GT4 McLaren race cars, and that occurring every 2 weeks, with round number 2 only just over a week away. We're looking for something far more casual. Perhaps you're looking to dip your toes in at the shallow end of the pool. Well, of course, we do have our Practice League available with 3 races every week on alternating days. It's never been a better time to get on the grid here at SimRacing International, and we'd love to see you become a part of it. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include CarMate, Mon Technology, the GP2 Group, and also we'd like to say a big thank you to Motorsport UK's Esports Division for recognising us here at SimRacing International as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and well and truly beyond that. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, that is the conclusion of our standard round stage. And next time, well, we make our way all the way to Watkins Glen International, the revival place of post-war road racing in the United States of America, and we begin the Showdown stage. 50% more points on the line. A win no longer worth 100 points, but worth 150 instead. And it all begins on Sunday, the 23rd of August. But we'll be bringing you the racing action as if it were live on Monday, the 24th of August, 2026. And what do we need to know championship-wise going into what will be our Showdown rounds? Well, firstly, in the Pro Championship, can anybody stop Philip Hammer, who with 6 wins, counting as all of his rounds from the opening 7 rounds, with the 1 drop score being the 2nd place, he's got a perfect score leading the way in, and all his rivals are going to have to find a way to achieve wins quickly and to find somehow a way for Philip Hammer to drop the ball. Meanwhile, in the interclass, it is still Max Wheeler who leads the way, albeit understanding the 3rd place today. Not the perfect result he wanted, but I don't think he's going to be too dissuaded, given he's going to have quite the comfort gap, and that comfort gap spanning almost 100 points versus Ashley Brooks as he makes his way into the Showdown stage. And as for the club class, Tom Wheeler, Jordan Maymar, the 2 big belligerents at the front, and Maymar has definitely struck back today, but it's still Tom Wheeler leading by the best part of approximately around about 50 to 40 points. And for the Wheeler family driver, can he find a way to keep Maymar at bay, or will Maymar be able to seize the opportunity and more points on the line at Watkins Glen to be able to level the scores completely? And as that team's championship, well, pole pressure with ASR, it may not have been that 3rd 1-2 that have been eagerly chasing, but with that 1st place win, and also some points still coming from Michael Schutzer-Kedelbach, despite his demotion to a 11th place right at the end of the race, they're going to be tough to beat, but you can appreciate that Aversa Rapid will be keen to be on their heels all the way to the very end. But how will it all play out at Watkins Glen? How will the story continue? We'll tune in a week's time to find out. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we have been SimRacing International. You've been tuning into the UK SimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship Season 19. And I have been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling. And as always, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.